me and the Lord, we got an understanding.
We're on a mission from God.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, citizens of planet Earth and beyond, stretching far off into the galaxy, as far as your mind's eye and your imagination can take you. Welcome to the Pork and Bean Show, starring Pork Cunningham and Frank Oliver Baines. We're going to introduce you to new thoughts, put questions in your head, and consider things you never considered before. Where the paranormal becomes the normal, where unreal becomes real, and where love is everything. Fasten your seatbelts and enjoy the ride.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. And I'm still Jonas. What is wrong with the Jonas?
You know, I'm fixing a lot of issues around here, Lady Beans. Where did he go?
Yeah, well, you cause a lot of problems, so you got to fix them.
Well, I guess that's one way of looking at it. But then, but then I get a lot of practice, right? You know what I mean?
I'm back to Jonas again. Oh my God, what is the matter with this thing?
I'm a hands-on type of guy. So when I keep screwing up, that's how I learn, right? You know what I mean?
I don't know. Less Jonas.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, here's Kevin Royce. Here's Kevin Royce. Let's bring him in. Where is Sam Chandler?
Okay, you guys talk, and I'm going to go do something creative and powerful and worthwhile.
Before you do something
unlike
creative,
other people.
Before you actually do something, before you actually do something, let me introduce the show. Hi, my name is Pork Cunningham, and I'm here with my distinguished, honorable, notorious, and the world's most handsomest man, Frank Oliver Baines. And this is the Pork and Bean Show. And thanks for coming.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. And it's chaos again at Pork and Beans house. But we got some good guests. Woo! We got the fabulous Leanne Newman and
some interloper down there on the bottom.
Because he's handsome but not fabulous.
Who's the guy on the bottom right?
Where's your couch? Where's your couch in the woods?
Oh yeah, this guy's got his own couch.
Let's see. I don't know. It's here. It just it's being shy today.
At least you don't have jaundice.
Right?
Got jaundice.
Anyway, Mr. Beans, go and do your stuff because Leanne may only be able to stay for a couple hours, and if Sam don't show up, we're in trouble. Then you'll have to say something.
Yeah, we got a mystery guest.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna go do my. I'm gonna do my my gratitude thing. I want to share with everybody the love that is the Pork and Bean Show, the love of one another, the love for humanity, the love for creation, the love for Sasquatch. I'm going to go share.
That's the part of the show I love the best when he takes off. Anyway, have you two met each other?
No.
No. Hi, Kevin. Very nice to meet you.
Kevin, this is
Nice
Leanne.
meeting you too.
She's from my home province of Ontario.
Oh, okay.
And
And where are you
I'm
from?
just south of you in Washington State.
Very nice.
Yeah.
yeah, and Leanne's well, I mean, more than that, but she's got her own like YouTube channel or whatever. And by the way, did you want to
okay.
She does a lot of work with structures and that kind of stuff. Very similar to the kind of things that I'm finding. And actually, I wanted to bring up a little later. I went out yesterday. You know, Randy Barnes, of course.
Of course.
Well, I know because he's your best friend now, and you've traded me, so I know you know him. So don't deny it. We don't even talk anymore.
Yeah, maybe. Right? I know. What are you doing, Brian? You've shunned me.
Nothing, man. Anyway, we went out to a place that he discovered yesterday, and it's just amazing. And when Leanne and I go over some of the pictures and whatever, when we discuss it, I'll show them to you. But yeah. So anyway, why don't you tell us what you said you had something you wanted to update us on? Did you want to get into that?
Me?
Well, you said you had something to talk about.
Well, no, what I said was I really have nothing. I'm in a really, really quiet time with my clan right now. I mean, really quiet. They show up. They let me know they're there. They've shown me some things that I'm supposed to be doing. And just to be really frank and honest, I haven't been doing them. It's all about priorities. And I kind of prioritized something else a little higher than the clan at the moment. Actually, it's not even about the clan. The stuff they have me doing is all for my own benefit, right? It's all self-work and things that will, I hate using these terms, but raise my vibration or frequency or whatever, move me into a lot stronger place of gratitude and love, frankly. But I've got some, so here's my problem is I've got some goals that I want to achieve by like August. And when I have a big goal that's a stretch goal, I tend to focus on it. And so I'm kind of focusing on that. And I pushed my self-development in these other areas aside. So it's not, I think they're just waiting for me to re-engage in that area before they hop back in. Now, not to say they haven't shown me some really cool stuff. Like yesterday, I went to Fort Flagler, which is an old military fort that was built over 100 years ago. And it was used as one of 3 forts that guarded the entrance to Puget Sound. It's sitting on about 1,500 acres, and it's heavily wooded and has trails going through the woods, but there's not a lot of minor trails. And as I was walking the trails with my wife, I was, of course, looking in the woods, and I was seeing a ton of their work. So I mean, that's really about all that's going on in my life, Brian. I just sort of hopped on because, well, you sent me an invite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know what you think, Leanne, but I mean, do you feel like you're going through lessons with them? Lessons, like lessons, and they're teaching you as you're going along.
nonstop.
Yeah.
That's been since the very start.
Hmm.
And what I've found so profound and real for me in my experience is that the lessons have gone in such an order, a brilliant order and way that it's like they know what I've learned, they know what I've found or experienced or kind of sunken in, and only when I've reached a certain point of my own inner development, then something else is given. And at that time, I've been ready to receive that lesson or understand it or put it together with other lessons that I've had, and on and on and on. So it's almost like if I had just like at the start of this whole journey of mine, if I had been given lessons, you know, that I've been learning this year, 10 years ago, it wouldn't have made sense. It would have, I would not have been able to process it or make the connections, the deep connections, the broad connections. But because they have been taking me on this brilliant, masterful journey of my own development and awareness, spiritually, emotionally, energetically, intuitively, have the lessons progressed in a certain direction. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Sorry, I
No,
don't know how I speak
absolutely.
that sentence, but it's, it has shown me that they have an infinite understanding of my own inner workings, and just when I think that, okay, I've been given so much and I've learned so much and it's mind blowing every time, boom, something else is presented, and it's been keeping me on my toes the whole time. And it's those surprises, those new moments that continue to just blow me away in the best way possible, and continue my own curiosity and passion for the subject and understanding them and this phenomenon that's happening around us.
Now, I've got a question that occurred to me, and I don't, maybe you've never been asked this before, but it really is intriguing to me. Your point of view, because you're a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just what you just said now is like a mirror image of my experiences, like the lessons and continuing and like building up and giving you a little bit, and then they'll keep that there, and then you get that understanding, add on or whatever. But so, and we consider them to be great teachers and whatever. So how, as a teacher, what do you see as similarities between you as a teacher or a teacher, like a human teacher, and them, and the differences? I know that's a big, huge, deep question, but there's a lot of correlations you see. I mean,
I think they know that I'm a lifelong learner. I think they know that my curiosity always has the best of me, and that I don't want to give up on something, as far as I don't want to quit a journey. I don't want to say I've had enough. And I think as a teacher looking at my students, I want them to have that same sort of approach to their own learning as a life learner. So is that kind of what you're asking about, like touching on?
Do you find that their teaching is similar to how you would teach and whatever? But I know that, it's much more elevated. They've got much more supernatural gifts, whatever. But it's basically like with me, it's like they understand my strengths, so they teach me kind of hands-on.
Yes. And they also know what I've been focusing on. So for instance, years ago, so in a nutshell, I had a very close sighting. It's probably about 10 years now ago, while I was berry picking. And it was shortly, a few years later, I really got into photographing mushrooms. And I got this aloe clip for my phone, and I was getting right underneath mushrooms, and I was obsessed for a summer photographing the beauty of fungi, right? And all their colors and forms. And wouldn't you know it, where I started doing audio and leaving things, they started leaving me mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was an example of, they know what I'm tapped into. They know where my attention is going. And we're able to communicate through those means, through those channels, through those symbols, the items. And I think this came up last week in our conversation. Mushrooms has still to this day is something that they will leave for me when I often least expect it. And two in particular have been quite something where I've found mushrooms in the middle of winter on top of like a hard snow right next to a structure, and obviously just been placed there. And it's the types of mushrooms that grow on the ground, right? They're not fungi from a tree or something. And it's like, boom, okay, there's another example. It just continues. It's so beautiful and powerful and masterful. So I think that the small learnings have been necessary to continue. So I think in that way, if I'm teaching math, you don't jump right into 2x2 multiplication. You start with the times tables, right? And I think that they understand that with us. And I also think that they know our threshold of fear of experiencing new ways of interaction, and they've never given me more than I can handle at a given time, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem to also know the time that's been needed to process it all and to have it sink in, and to like for the new normal understanding to be in place for the next lesson and the next learning. So that makes sense.
Hey, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Go ahead.
Hey guys, sorry about that. It's been one of those mornings, and I was just able to finally get set.
That's fine. Leanne maybe only has a couple hours anyway, so we're gonna do a lot of her for the first little bit. But you, Sam, are a big fan of Leanne's, right? And so I want you to interject. Yeah. You have some questions and probably some things you want to interject between the two of you too, right? So do that, and we're gonna get to you too. But like I said, you've only got a couple hours, Leanne, maybe.
Yes. I have to get back to my family first.
So we'll put you top heavy at the front, kind of thing, and
whichever the conversation goes.
So have you guys actually met Leanne and Sam, or are you just like fans of like looking at each other's work?
No. We didn't meet. We were supposed to meet at the Georgia conference in 2019.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she wasn't able to make it. So
unfortunately. And I heard that was a really great time with those who were able to go. I still have all my videos that I made for that conference that I don't think were able to be shown. But Sam, maybe share them with you because I was really eager to participate in that.
Okay, yeah, we had like a technical difficulty, so we weren't able to get your videos on.
Yeah, I heard, but it's okay. Hopefully another time.
Okay, so let me ask you. So, Leanne, take us from the beginning. What caught your interest? I mean, were you always like a aware, kind of open child? Take us through your journey, and then leading up to when the Sasquatch introduced themselves, kind of thing.
Thank you. So I had my first big encounter that I could probably talk about for about 20 minutes, so I won't. I'll just kind of grab it in a nutshell. It was 1988, and I was at a staff training for camp. I was an outdoor education instructor for many years, and we were camping as a staff at a certain location near where I grew up in Kingston. And in the middle of the night, we had these hugely massive bipedal footsteps run around and around and around our tent, chasing something, and it never quite caught it. And now that I've done years of audio, I actually think that it was two, and they were just being goofy and mimicking something else. But anyway, it terrified me. I thought I was going to die. I thought it wasn't a bear. It was not a moose. It was no human. It was pitch black. They were running around the forest, and it had up until that point been the most terrifying, scary moment I'd ever had in my life. And strangely, after hearing them run around and run around the tent, they disappeared into the woods, and I fell right asleep. And I was like, okay, that was kind of crazy. I may have just passed out from the sheer terror and fear. So
sounds familiar to me.
Yeah. again, it kind of pushed me into the direction of realizing that this is something.
Can I interject one quick thing? Have they ever,
Please.
and this was early on, and please, I'm sorry, but have they ever, when you're feeling that fear, giving you an energy of like, we're here, we're with you, we're okay, you're okay, don't fear, or just a calming kind of energy?
Well, now, yes, because
Okay,
since
but
I
not at
started
that
doing
time.
yoga,
So sorry about that.
at that time,
Go ahead.
I was in green, and so it kind of pushed me onto the path of awareness that they live in this forest for sure. And I eventually wrote it up in a big story. I think I actually sent it to David Paulides first years ago, because I read all of his 411 books, and he may have been the first. Scott Carpenter, I may have sent it to him years ago. But anyway, so rewind about 10 years ago, I have 2 young children, and I was berry picking up at our cottage, and I'd been deep in the woods along this old trail that had been forested. So there was lots of berries on either side growing back. And I'd been in this one blackberry bush that was really, really deep. And the blackberries are like the size of, half of your thumb kind of thing. And I'd squeezed my way in, and I was just in heaven, picking berries, no one in sight, always making noise for bears, because I'm aware that there's lots of bear back there. And my mind was a million miles away. And all of a sudden, as I'm in the bush, picking the berries, thorns everywhere, I hear a really deep gruff. And I looked to the back of the bush that opened into the forest, like this beautiful mixed forest. I saw the outline of a Bigfoot. And because the sun was behind it, I could only see like the dark outline. It was later in the afternoon, if you can imagine. And I would estimate it was about the height of my brother, who's 6'3", maybe a little bit more, 6'4". So it wasn't a really, really big one, but it was massive shoulders, dark, and it was in the back of the bush, or it shook the whole bush, because it was all connected with these vines, these blackberry shrubs. And I saw it step back and turn and walk away, bipedal, choo, choo, choo. And at that time, kind of as this was happening, I dropped my berries. It was instant fight or flight reaction. I ran like a wild animal out of the bush. I got all scratched up. I dropped my berries, and I ran all the way back to my car, which was about a kilometer, and I almost vomited. I was just so exhausted and that took a long time for me to process, because having 2 young kids, I went through the cycle, or I went through like denial, guilt, how stupid could I be? What the hell just happened? Like a total paradigm shift. And it took me months to be able to even talk about it with anybody, because the trauma of that and the shock of that was so, well, it completely gutted me. And I had to put myself back together in a way.
When was this again? How long ago?
Something terrifying. So 2020 is 2010, 2011, 2010, 2011, 9 or 10 years ago. I lose track of the years. But it took about 2 years for me to muster courage to go back to that area. And it was around that same time I started going back into the woods in general up at our cottage. And that is when I started seeing stick signs. And I'd never seen them before. It was almost like, what's the movie, Beautiful Mind, the mathematician who sees numbers and patterns everywhere, and they just, like the movie shows them just kind of popping out magically lit, whatever.
It is beautiful.
Every time I walk throughout the woods, I started seeing these beautiful star formations, X's, ground glyphs, bends, tucked under. It's like I had new eyes. I was seeing things in a way I'd never seen before. And I had not been following, I didn't even know of Timber Giant, or I didn't know of anybody involved in this subject. I reached out to a man who still to this day runs an organization here in Ontario called Ontario Wildlife Field Research, Peter, and he took great interest in what I was seeing in my story and the wood signs I was finding. And he had also been finding some in Northern Ontario. So we started to connect our findings. And I was beginning to realize I'm not insane. I'm not seeing things like this is a phenomenon. Other people are finding the same thing, especially in areas where sightings have been made or prints been found or vocals have been heard. And so it just escalated from there. The more I found, the more courage I had to go back into the woods, the more I found. And that was the beginning of kind of the building of the journey, of the lessons, of the I think just the opening up of being able to accept and receive the messages, the learning, the discoveries of this amazing subject. And then something really bizarre happened about 5-6 years ago, is that I reached out to Mike Patterson, SASQUATCH Ontario. We became friends. And I noticed that he had also been finding some pretty substantial stick structures, as had I. I started to find bigger ones and bigger ones. And the strangest thing happened. It's like something opened up inside of me, and I was waking up in the middle of the night with a deep knowing of, I need to go explore this river. I need to go to this forest. I need to go find this place I'd never been to before, because I know that there's something to be found there. And so my intuition became so strong that I was waking up early on weekend mornings and just with the drive, with the need to go to a certain place I'd never been before, didn't even know how to get there. I was printing out maps and using my phone. What is this place? How do I get there? And I kid you not, 99% of the time there were structures there. Yeah. And so it was like there was this connection through my mind, through my dreams, through my emotion, through my intuition, that were pulling to these places. And every time, I kid you not, I couldn't understand it. It blew me away every time. And so that's when really my journey of structures really began. And it took me a couple of years of experiencing this pull to these places I'd never even knew of before. It took me about 2 years to muster the courage to start a YouTube channel and to begin sharing some of these discoveries, because I didn't know who else was finding these. I didn't know of Timber Giant. I hadn't heard of anybody else. Yeah. Again, I reached out to Scott Carpenter, David, this man, Peter from Ontario, Mike, and that's about all I was working with. So it's just progressed from there. I started doing audio at certain structures, and I've been given some incredible recordings. I found some prints. Absolutely, the intuition still pulls me, but it's different now. It's almost like, now that I have an understanding of where there's some pretty amazing activity going on, it's less about finding the new structures. It's more about studying them and observing the subtle changes and receiving a deeper learning from them. And I'm grateful that I have, 4 or 5 years in some cases, photographs documenting the evolution and the changes and the, just what's been happening. But that's kind of me in a nutshell, I guess. Yeah. It started from a very, very traumatic, scary experience, and it's brought me in the most gentle way, but progressive way, if that's the right word, like bit by bit, it's brought me to where I am now. And that wouldn't have happened.
I noticed Sam was smiling quite a bit when you were saying about the pull, because I think, and probably Kevin is the same. We've all gone through that, where I went through a phase where they were wanting, they were just giving me the idea they wanted me to go to a certain place. I just knew it. It was intuition, how you want to describe it. And sure enough, like you said, there would be something there. So it's just all so familiar, eh, Sam? I guess you've experienced that too.
And then you start to notice.
Yeah.
Then you start to notice that you're not even consciously doing it. You'll just end up somewhere, or like guided behind the scenes somewhere, and you'll end up somewhere. Something will happen, and then you'll realize later, like, oh man, they guided me there too. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's so beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
And this is
Connect
also
the
causing
dots. That's what you connect the dots.
Yeah, and then they
Yeah,
step it up. They even step it up a notch sometimes, and they'll do stuff 5 years ago that they know it's gonna click that day when you look at it or whatever. Like me, the time thing. It's just so advanced and evolved. So it's just amazing. So should we get into? Did you want to share some of those? Oh, well, I also wanted to ask you. You were saying you're getting lessons or whatever, and it's constantly evolving and whatever, right? So what are they teaching you? Where have you come from? Like, where are you at now? And kind of talk on that a little bit. Like what are they trying to teach you? What is it all about for you?
Early on, when I made my first few videos and put them to music, the big lesson that I felt that they were teaching us, is they were helping remind us of our latent or our innate ability to communicate telepathically, to emotionally understand each other, the way the structures are built, the interconnectedness, the support. It was a symbol for us humans to be with each other, that together we're strong and together we can support and create beauty and be what's the word I'm looking for? Not be magic, but just have a very strong spiritual, emotional connection to one another. I felt that they were trying to wake us up to the greater reality of where we live, that there are many things seen and unseen that have always been around us. And I think the presence of these structures and signs that we're finding in the woods is aiding in that spiritual progression, unfolding, understanding, evolution movement. And I think it is a forward movement. And I think the more that we can remember our own soul and our connection with each other, with the universe across space and time. I've been given examples, I'm sure like we all have through audio and structures or experiences, that they seem to know where we're going to be, or they can see the future, or they can certainly attract us to certain places at certain key moments in time. So we have these abilities that I think many of us have forgotten about. But since I've been on this journey, they have absolutely reminded me, and I've remembered more about who we are and where we come from, and our connection to the infinite, to the universe, to each other, to love, to nature. So
that's just amazing. I come from a guru, enlightened man relationship kind of thing, because I've met like 4 enlightened beings, and humans, right, and 1 enlightened Sasquatch that I know of. And you're describing the guru devotee relationship, where the enlightened one, with compassion and care, brings up the intellect, brings up the spirit, brings up the awareness of the devotee or the student. So the student master relationship. I think this is really important for the rest of the Sasquatch world to understand that there's a student master relationship. Even though it may be fun and simple and little things, but like for example, I've actually had God realization, and even with that, it took them 2 years to teach me about the all one and no space and what that really means. The way they work with us is in no space, and no space means there's no space between you and me. So that means they're inside of us, we're inside of them, which is like, I and my father are one, and I and my brother are one. That's a statement of no space. There's no space, no difference. So this is really, really, really high stuff. And thank you for bringing that whole relationship out so clearly.
Thank you
Mhm.
for understanding. I know that you do, that you all do.
I agree. I think
And beautiful. Sorry.
I think we all feel. I mean, what you said was just eloquently put, but I think it's in everyone here's heart and in everybody's connection with the Sasquatch. We've all learned the same thing, which is very, very beautiful. Really, like the lesson. The lessons are and the experiences and the commonalities and like I'm sure that when I'm talking or Sam's talking or anybody's talking, like I know myself personally, I'm click, 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 click. It's all these, yeah, like things that are either I've experienced or the same kind of thing related. And it just makes it all more real, when you hear people talking about it. So, yeah. Did you want to add anything to that, Sam? Or?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I agree with Michael too. When from like the guru relationship, like that's totally how I feel about with like my teacher and with all of them, really, because I've learned so much from them, and it's just this connection that you get, and it's the same connection that I hear when like Ram Dass talks about meeting his guru Neem Karoli Baba. Like you just meet and you just know. It's like when you make that heart connection. And it's like you've known each other forever, and there's just this love that's just all it's about. You feel the love, and you're like, but once you make that connection with them, that's whenever I hear people talk about their gurus, I know exactly what they're talking about now.
Yeah, just as you were talking about teachers, and I had something going on in my head, and I felt RE come in quite strong. So. Because I was posing the question, like some people have specific teachers. Like with me, I feel that like RE is my main guy, but I think that the whole clan is kind of like involved in it, like 4 or 5 main guys. But it's very interesting how the approach that they take with different individuals, teaching them according to their strengths, and also different approaches to teaching or relationships and whatever. It's just so unique all around.
Yeah, I think that there's like you make the soul like direct connection with who you're intended to match with energetically, and work the best with. So like with me when I met Vabion, it just felt like destined, and we had never met before that, but it was almost like predetermined that it was going to be that way, because I had most of my interactions with the ones in Ontario and the ones in Georgia. And then when I moved out here and met her, it was like, we had never met before that, but it just felt like we had known each other forever, like when we did meet. So I think that's.
You're talking about your Sasquatch teacher?
What?
You're talking about your Sasquatch teacher. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing.
Leanne, where because I grew up going to a cabin in Canada in Ontario since I was 8 years old, and it's a little south of Bancroft.
Yeah.
And that's where I was introduced to them. And so when I started watching your videos, I saw your structures are definitely more intricate and way more active than the place that I go to. But where I go to is on like, it's a private lake on, and it's surrounded by like 5,000 acres of private land. Yeah. And then beyond that, it's surrounded by more private land, some provincial land, and then a lot of like logging places. So I'm not able to explore the whole area because some of it's just really hard to get into.
Yes.
But I see a lot of commonalities, but your audio recordings too, really like, I'm like, oh yeah. So where, you don't have to give me like an exact area, obviously, but like your cottage, what area is it near? It's
near Bancroft. I would say between Bancroft and Pembroke area. So up there, very similar topography, Canadian Shield, lots of rock, lots of lakes, lots of rugged land. And so the audio is a whole other arm of lessons and learning in that I really believe in my heart that the sighting I had while berry picking was a Sasquatch who had been watching me grow up, or not, maybe not him or her in particular. I felt like it was a him, but his family, his clan, and that our cottage is in quite a remote area. And I think they've probably watched me and my brothers and our family our whole lives, and we just didn't even realize it. And so that one sighting was a gift from a younger one of them to kind of push me up, over the edge a little bit or a lot, to really awakening me to their presence in that area. And that's when I started doing audio. And it was shortly after that. And what has been happening every summer and every year that I've been doing it is that more and more I'm given little ones running by at night. Couple little ones will come by at night, and I'll get their little their little footsteps running. Just it's incredible. They'll come to our woodshed. They'll mess around with things around there. They will do vocals. There's so much interaction, and I think that it's a big sign of trust on their behalf to let the little ones come towards the recorder. And I think it's a message of, we know you. We've been watching you all your life. Now that you know that we're here, as you give us, more trust and love, we'll slowly give you more and more. And so the progression of audio has been spectacular. And as I was saying to Brian before the show started, I need to get into sharing more of my audio because as you know, it takes so much time to go through everything and make the proper files.
Yeah.
But to me, that is where the majority of learning about them has come from. And it's been a true honor to have that ability to interact with them through that medium.
I want to get into the structure so we can talk and kind of bounce some stuff off each other. But quickly, now you got my interest peaked. What have you learned, even though you don't have them ready? What have you learned with the audio? What are some of the places it's taken you?
Was that for me? Sorry.
Yeah, you said because you've learned so much with the audio. What have you talk about that a little bit?
So something that happens on almost every single night, I leave the audio out. So what I do is I go back to two same places on our property, and I'll put the audios out. I'll talk to them. I'll express my love and gratitude and just talk about the day, the weather, the date, the temperature, the wind conditions, all that kind of stuff. And then I'll go back to the cottage, either while I'm speaking into the mic, into the audio, or short minutes after. What I will get is what I call like a mic hit, like a big, like a whomp against the recorder. And it is so jarring when you hear it in the headphones. And I don't know if it's a physical ding or if it's an energetic bonk that they can just kind of send and give it a good whack. But it tells me that they're right there, that they're always right there. When you go back with the intention of interacting and talking with them or learning from them, that they will give you a sign either instantly or within minutes after you've left, that they are right there. And so that's just one of the things that I've learned. Have you had any experience with that, Kevin or Sam?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I do audio every night when I'm up there. And like you said, it takes forever because when you come home, you've got, 7 to 10 days with 10 hours of audio that you have to listen to, and it just takes forever. But yeah, a lot of times, they bring the little ones in, and you'll hear their little footsteps, and they whisper and stuff. They'll get like close to and whisper. They'll tap it with sticks. But yeah, I mean, audio to me, that's my favorite thing to collect evidence with, because they seem to feel more comfortable with it because they don't want to be seen, and they'll do so many things, and it's not always mind blowing stuff, but it's just so cool. Like we have a burn barrel, and they'll go up and they'll tap the burn barrel in these like rhythmic like tappings, and then it'll be quiet for like 2 hours, nothing, and then all of a sudden it's like out of nowhere, you know, just the tree sounds like it's falling over, or like a freight train runs through the area, and then it'll be quiet again, and then it'll be like whispers. And when I first started hearing it, it was scary. It's creepy, you know, and then you start to get used to it and really start to like look forward to it every night. Because I would listen to it at night when my kids were going to sleep, and I would look forward to those times where I could put my headphones in and just listen to the recordings. Yeah. I really like that stuff.
Absolutely. And it's so addictive almost, because even in those silent moments or those silent hours, there's always that feeling of anticipation, like what's happening next? Like something's coming, right? And then you'll get a slow branch twist, you know, or it's like, they're so funny. There's so much humor, I find, that comes through an audio. And then if you get them mimicking owls or strange birds or making weird noises, it makes you laugh. Like, oh my gosh, that is just ridiculous. It's awesome. Oh, that's so great, Sam.
So I want to, because you said you may have limited time, let's get into the bring in the screen sharing thing that you were going to do, and we'll and then I'll bring up some of mine, and you can comment on mine and me yours, and let's bounce some ideas off each other, all of us, whatever. But because I've seen a lot of structures too, and you have, so we could probably some cool stuff come up. But I was going to ask you, so you're a habituator then? So they are right in your backyard?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay, well that's amazing. Yeah, I like, when Sue and I get our own place, whatever, we're going to try to get some place with forest, someplace remote or whatever, because that's a whole different ball game when they've come to my house, but they don't live in the backyard. It's different when they live in your backyard, right? But what I wanted to ask you is, okay, so then most of the stuff you're finding is in your backyard, or like just the field behind it and stuff?
Structures.
Well, I don't actually want to give your area away though, so maybe we shouldn't say that, but it's closed. But you're a habituator, basically. Okay. Basically, my question is how do you know, and believe me, this is not a negative question in any way, because you and I have discussed this before. We both know sometimes kids are involved in them, or sometimes kids will make them. How do you know, or what's your quality control kind of thing that the Sasquatch are making most of the ones, or the ones that you're keying in on? What do you look for?
So many things. I think one big one is so many of us all around the world are finding the exact same styles of structures, that is similar designs, similar creation sizes, using similar materials. I teach kids, and I know the attention span of kids, of boys. I teach all boys. And, they have a difficult time reading a book, or most adults have a difficult time picking up the newspaper these days and reading it front to back. Or people seem to be generally in such a hurry to be doing something. And when you understand or see time and time again, and imagine the time it would take to find the wood, collect the wood to one location, then dream up, visualize a design, to assemble it, to make it work, to make it balance, to make it withstand weather, storms, ice, wind, to be able to lift some of these pieces and maneuver them, to take all the bark off. Like one structure the amount of effort is Herculaneum in some cases. And I cannot see a human or group of humans choosing to do that in the middle of winter, in the middle of rain, at any time, really, because everybody's on their phones or they're doing other things. And I have never seen anybody build any of these structures. I've walked through an area, like I'm sure we all have, and I've gone there the next day or 2 days later, and boom, something has just come through and been built. And another thing I've noticed is often it's after wet weather or storm or snow. when nobody's out anyway, right?
Yeah.
And or you see changes in structures, and it's like people couldn't even lift that. And where did they get that from? And where's all this wood being collected from? There's too many people are just too busy
Yeah.
to attempt to do even one of these structures. I mean, maybe I've seen kids like add things to it, like we talked about, Brian, because I think maybe part of the reason is to attract that love and that joy and the excitement from kids and from humans, and they enjoy seeing that joy experienced in us. And so you see kids sometimes like putting a stick here or there, or running around chasing each other with a stick or something. That's part of it, right? But it's kind of like crop circles in a way, I think, when they started really coming through back in the 90s.
Absolutely like crop circles.
Yep. So nobody was ever seen making them. That whole Doug and Dave story was proven to be botched and lies. And but what the crop circles did was it awakened people. It caused people to ask questions for maybe the first time. And still to this day, we may not have a definitive answer. There's lots of theories, but what it's doing is it's awakening people. It's causing people to have conversations with other people. It's causing people to feel differently, think new thoughts, consider new possibilities. And I think that that's needed for humanity.
You're talking about engagement, and the ET people have been doing things with their craft since the 1940s to engage people. What is this craft? What is this radiation? What is these, burn marks? And then it went on to, like, they would drop things out of the craft, and then they would drop like this angel hair stuff, and then it just went on and on. There's a whole list of those things that they did over time to engage people. It's the same kind. And then you look at the crop circles, and you look at the crop circles, and the engagement is like, why, what does this mean? And what does this represent? And what is the story? And it's the same thing with the Sasquatch. Sasquatch are doing the same thing. Like we just talked about the wreaths, right? Well, first it was stick glyphs, which Brian talked about, and in his books. And then it got into the structures, and now it's the massive structures. And now we just heard about recently in the last few weeks is the wreaths that they're giving they're making these wreaths, and sometimes they make them in balls and sometimes in circles. And so it's about engagement. Like, what are they saying? What does this mean? And then there's a reason behind both these agendas are to keep us engaged with this paranormal bigger world.
Right. It's a beautiful way to summarize it, Michael.
And I've seen this, the Sasquatch have made crop circles too. I've got some pictures that I'm pretty sure that they made. Well, I know for sure they made some of them, but
John's got a photograph of those rings around the trees. That's just like phenomenal.
We're going to bring that up when I get into my part of it. But let's. I don't want to sell these pictures and everything short or run out of time. So, Leanne, why don't you bring some pictures up and we'll go through them and we'll make some comments on them as you go along. You want to bring yours up first or mine?
You go ahead, Brian. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, before he forgets how to do it. We had a lesson just before the show. He learned how to do screen share.
I'll just go over some of these slowly, and you can make some comments, Dan, if you want to.
The first screen share of
this is my first screen share moment. Yeah, so that's quite a nice structure there. And in my area, they utilize a lot of the stumps or whatever with the structures. I guess you're different. You don't have the same kind of trees and everything, I suppose. But
and Brian, were those boughs fresh? Were they freshly ripped and placed?
Some of them, sometimes they're very fresh. Like, I've talked to the rangers and whatever. Like, that's what everything you said about you and I know from experience. It's just so much evidence is overwhelming that they make them. But it's just so much to bring up for people listening in. But I've had rangers tell me and whatever where I go, like, there's been like torrential downpours and they've taken a structure down because they were doing that at one time. Then they just gave up. They just let them do it. And in a closed area where nobody can go, they've taken it down. They went in the next morning or whatever, it's back up again in a torrential downpour. you know, and there's nobody there, and like complex stuff. So, you know, even the guys that work there, the rangers and people like that, they know, right? They don't talk about it much, but yeah, sometimes it's extremely fresh. But yeah,
Yeah.
does that roof look familiar for you, Leanne, or what?
Sometimes I've come upon a new structure where they've broken ferns, like tall, like ostrich
Yeah,
ferns.
I find a lot that
And
these broken
Yeah.
pieces of wood or whatever are quite often used for the roof, and then they do a. Okay, so
And
there's
so
one.
many have been fresh, like they just
Yeah.
ripped that morning, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's astounding. It's almost like, did they know I was coming, right? Or are they building this all on their own and I just happened to stumble across it? But sometimes they are exceptionally fresh.
No, exactly. Oh, no, remember, you see, like, look down here. You see the A glyph? It's upside down, though. You see it? And it could be a
Yes,
Y,
I
too, this way.
do.
It's kind of there's a glyph there. That's what I look for, too, around. Like, that's one of those things that gives them away, right? You know, but anyway. Actually, I was looking at some of yours that I've seen from a few years ago and was seeing some glyphs hanging around, too, but that's an interesting one, eh?
And Brian, do you find a lot of the lower branches on some of the longer poles are all off as well? Like it's like they clean the majority of the trunk of the tree. Like they
Yeah.
take all the branches off and
Yeah.
use it as a big pole, right? That's another, you know, sign right there. Like who's and they're not cut with a saw. They're just
No.
broken off.
Well, that
Right?
doesn't matter, though. I don't care. That's kind of like people say, well, hey, dumb, or they said it in like, where's words on that? Or they say, don't you see the saw cuts? And I said, yeah, well, they'll use whatever is, don't care.
Mhm.
They're not going to say,
They
hey,
sure
wait a
will.
minute, this is cut by humans. I'm not going to use, they're just going to use whatever they can
This
use.
is one of my favorites here. This little Japanese looking stick thing. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's nice, eh?
That's beautiful.
That's a neat one too. I think hold on a second. Let me look again. Basically the same place. This one is just a little to the left. This one of that other one. The other one is just over this way. But I don't think they were there at the same time. But yeah, that's neat, eh?
Very nice.
So many different designs, eh, Leanne?
Yep.
Yeah.
And they got specific leaves that they went and collected these leaves to stick on there. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Quite often they'll put ferns, or they'll put well, I'm going to get to that as I get onto that, but whatever. But they'll put different little things, like almost decorative. You know, like they'll put ferns on it, and that's the kind of stuff you look for that just a human wouldn't do. Just different little stuff you get to look at, or I mean, you get to notice. Yeah. Look at that one.
Beautiful.
Like a longhouse, eh? I think that, you know, like the design that your guys and my guys are making are very similar, but sometimes they don't have the same kind of trees and the same kind of vegetation to use, right? A nice little guy.
Yes.
And
that's on the stump, is it? That's amazing. Wow.
What's that?
That's built against a big stump, is it?
Yeah. Now look at this one. This one had a path right around it of ferns that went, you can see a little bit of here, it went completely around the circumference of it. It had all this moss laid in here. This old wind chime thing that was like, looked like about 50 years old or something. It was like all, looked like it'd been in the woods for like 20 years or something. Anyway, and then this typical roof. That was quite nice. Yeah, there's another one. Couple. Look at that.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, the thing is there's those evergreens that you're seeing in there. I've seen these little square things all over the place. And the evergreens in there, there's no evergreen trees there. They didn't come from, these are not evergreen trees. And other than this that's sticking out a little bit outside of the perimeter of it, there's no evergreens anywhere around here. So they're all kind of carried in. Another one. That one's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I've seen that same design the year before very similar. But once again, there were like sticks in the ground and all kinds of collaborative evidence around it. That's interesting too. Look at this. This is from yesterday. This is in the new spot that we went to with Randy Barnes. Look at that.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh, there we go. There you go, Mr. Beans. Check this out. Those rings again, right? You know, it's never a coincidence when you're talking about something and then the other person has the same thing like that day or something. It's just like everything just lines up
I
perfectly.
didn't see any rings in this one. This is just like a little
Right here.
little tent structure.
Hold
How
on
is
here.
that backbone even kept up? Sorry, Brian.
No, go ahead, Leanne.
There you go.
I
That's
think that-
amazing.
I think that Brian's connection is pretty slow when he's not able to upload quickly. So we're talking about different pictures.
I see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, you see it now?
Your rings just finally showed up.
The rings on the tree are showing up
Oh, okay. Okay.
on the ground.
Well, that's no
Yeah.
good. So I was talking about stuff that wasn't showing up. Okay, well, here's the rings. You can see.
Yeah, but we didn't notice because we know you.
Okay. Typical one, Leanne. I think I've seen some like that from you, haven't I?
I have not found rings like that. No, those are actually really new for me. I've found like circular arches on the ground, but not a full ring like that.
No, but it was very similar to the one that you were just talking about. That was like just standing up by the structure. It was kind of like in a different context or different setting, but it was maybe similar. Am I on another picture now? Because I'm trying to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, is that a freestanding?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Okay. Do you see this now? Do you see Randy Barnes,
Yeah.
my friend there?
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh, I found one like that before. Not quite as extensive as that.
That's amazing.
Same.
Arches.
Wow.
Yeah, but this is to your point, Leanne. The thing is that, you know, like all those pieces are similar size, or they're kind of like, they kind of match up or whatever. But, you know, like you try gathering all of them in that immediate area, it's going to take a long time. Plus, this is not a
Where,
place
where do they find the bent limbs like that?
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It would take people hours and hours and hours to find that stuff just in the area. And this is not a place where people camp. This is just a place where people walk through during the day. Nobody's going to sit there and do that for 3 or 4 hours in a place where there's not even a, you know, it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. It's beautiful.
Okay, so look at this. See that log?
It's just not coming through yet, I don't think.
I think Brian's living in the future.
There it is.
There it is.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And there was a bunch of structures and whatever right around here. There was 3 or 4 things right around here. So I'm going to slow down, and when you guys see the next picture kind of thing, then you can let me know. Otherwise, I'm just kind of like, it's ridiculous. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next picture. Neat, eh? It was about 30 feet long, at least.
That's the one with the rocks on the log. That's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, I mean, and
You know,
once again,
humans could have done that, but who would do it? Who would do it? Because if I was doing it, I'd have to go walk all around to find each rock and bring it back. That'd be a lot of work. It's hours.
Well, I see maybe
Yeah.
1 or 2 rocks that would fit on top of that thing in the area. Some of them are like buried. That's all. Believe me, I was there. That would be a lot of work to find all those rocks. And like I said, it's not a camping place. People are just moving through. So it's not conducive to people spending all day there and just horsing around, right? Building stuff. Okay, I'm on the next one. So this is very interesting. This is a very important one. Are we there? Let me know when we're there.
Mm. Is it wrapped?
That looks like some logs.
Okay, it's a
That's
log.
the one you're talking about, the one with the logs and a tree.
But like to my point, I was
Looks
talking
like it's
about,
wrapped in
they
bark.
do a lot of decorative stuff with ferns, branches, whatever, and they also peel a lot of bark, and sometimes they hang it off their structures and do different things. So look at that log right here. See all these things? These are all peeled pieces of bark that are wrapped completely around the log. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, I don't know if it's all one piece or there's like 7 or 8 different pieces, but you know, I mean, it's like Leanne, like you said or whatever. I think you said like when they show you something, they give you something that you've seen them use before, and then that's how you get the clue. Okay, for sure, because obviously that was put there by hand.
Right.
And then and I've seen them using it in the structure. So, okay, let me know when we're on the next picture. Sorry about that delay.
Still the logs.
Good.
Okay, that's amazing.
Nice. Wow.
Wow.
Once again, what
Brian,
person?
do you know?
What's that? Go ahead, Leanne.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, my point wasn't important. Go ahead. Just make your point.
I once found a ground glyph, I guess you'd call it, at the Seven Structures area. I don't have a picture of it handy. It's in my Seven Structures playlist on my YouTube channel. But what I came across was a collection of wood that had been laid on the ground, and it was laid from smallest to longest against a perpendicular pole like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the most incredible thing. And then I came back a few days later and boom, it had been turned into a structure. And so again, it was a teaching moment. Is this what they do to plan their structures, or were they showing me that this was something that they like to do, lay them in that type of fashion? But it's very similar to what you have here, except that they went the progression was shortest to longest. It was just amazing. Amazing.
You know what? I could see that. I could see them with the way it was sitting there, just kind of putting them up and making a structure out of that. Are we on the next picture yet?
Yes.
Okay, there's another structure, kind of neat. And I noticed I found a lot.
This is all pixelated. I wonder why this is all pixelated.
I don't know if you find this, Leanne, but down here where they pile this up here, I found this numerous times where they kind of put a foundation or something, and then they will prop something up on it, like a support, and then build around it, kind of thing. Of course, in this piece is propped into here, and they put whatever, but that's kind of neat. Oh, look at this when it comes up. We there?
Yep.
Yeah, it's not coming up yet. It's still the last one. The one with the logs.
Okay, are we there yet? I wonder why that delay.
Nope.
Wow.
Maybe you need to refresh your Facebook page. Oh, that's amazing. It's like a little square box with all kind of sticks.
Yeah, and you know what's kind of interesting is, and I'm going to try to get through these as fast as I'm sorry that it's such a delay, but you know, Maeve Cohen, I guess, was it her?
Yeah.
Somebody was talking about blue things being found in these structures, and I think there was one in this one, and I found them all over the place right after we were talking about it, which is, you know, no coincidence. It's funny how that works, isn't it?
That's awesome. I
Okay,
love that.
Guys say, well, just let me know when the next pick comes. Sorry. I want to know if you ever seen these, Leanne.
Okay.
This is one we were talking
Still
about
logs.
earlier about how they imitate people, and this is a simulated fire pit. I'm sure that they do these because they see people lighting their fires.
Yeah, the picture's still on the square one.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Now
That's bizarre.
there you go. That's the rock.
Bizarre how slow
rock
that is. Anyway, this is a simulated fire pit.
I've found so many of those, Brian, next to structures. They're mind-boggling. They're never lit. They've never been used. Sometimes some are stone, some are old pieces of brick, some are old chunks of concrete gotten from who knows where, or found from who knows where. Sometimes there's like a sitting rock or a log pulled in next to it as if, you know, to simulate a place to sit, which is far too small for a human to sit on. And it's absolutely incredible. And these fire pits are being found, just like these structures, are all over the place.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful.
Are they
Beautiful.
generally around where people are having campfires and stuff? you think they're imitating people and they want to fit in, or is that your feeling?
It could very well be. Where I'm finding these structures, people generally aren't allowed to have campfires. So maybe it's just tapping into a deeper history, a deeper knowledge, remembrance.
Well, that's my understanding,
that's like
because
all that.
because of, like you said, wanting to be around we talked about being around the energy of people and whatever. And I know that I mean, I had a personal experience because I was camping 6 or 7 miles in the woods and in a special little place, and I had my campfire, and I discovered, or actually I discovered that there was a fire pit right on the trail with an open view to exactly where I had my fire. And it was just one of those ones with the peel sticks all simulated. And it was like direct view to, like the only view, kind of direct view to right where I was having my fire. And so, you know, you just put it together with the clues, right? And then around the campgrounds and whatever. I've seen dozens of them. Have you seen this next one here? This is interesting. And they do use string. So you guys use string?
You too.
Check
Not
that.
coming up yet, Brian.
I'm convinced that if they are intelligent and masterful enough to build and construct and design and balance and collect the structures that they're creating, they can figure out how to tie a knot. Like they're so exceptionally resourceful, and I believe they're collectors of anything of interest, and they will use anything that they find. That there's no doubt they know how to use string.
No, there's no question, because are we seeing something hanging from string here from a tree?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Oh, okay. We are seeing that because Mike, are you saying that? Or Mr. Beans? Anyway,
I see,
there's no question
I see
that
something looks like a yellow string in the back of it.
right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They use string. There's no question that they use string. And just quickly, because one of the things was, because I'm always like, I'm pretty analytical, and even though I'm creative and out there and whatever, I still practical in some ways. And so when I see string with the structures, I always get that string, blah, blah, blah. And one day I got that, and I was with Randy Barnes, and I was thinking string, because it was kind of tied up at the top, teepee kind of thing. And as soon as I thought that, we saw a glyph right on the ground, a perfect key glyph. And the vertical piece, no, the horizontal piece was a little peel stick, like a perfect key glyph, something I see all the time, something I'm familiar with. But the vertical piece directly centered and touching, no question, a key glyph was the exact same string as what I had just was thinking, I wonder. And it was like, they told me, yeah, of course we use string, idiots. Like that's the kind of, so they do use it, but it's still kind of surprising, right? Anyway, I guess, you know, these are going too slow. Maybe I should let you get on with yours.
Yeah, speed it up there, Mr.
Are we in the next picture or no?
No, it's still the same picture with the string.
I wonder why that's so
Holding it
slow.
up.
Huh.
Could
Okay,
be you
well,
need to refresh your Facebook.
I'll
There we
tell you
go.
what, Leanne, I'm going to stop my share. Maybe I'll bring some up at the end of yours, but let's get on with your pictures because it's just too slow.
Okay, well, I'd love to just dovetail on that string idea. So I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So here's 3 pictures. I'm sure like all of us, we found many examples of
Ooh,
these.
that's good.
But this was in my first year of when I really started finding big structures. And this was a structure that was so difficult to get to. I had to scramble down a really steep ravine. It was slippery. There's no trail down there. And when I got to the bottom, I found this structure. I don't have a full picture of it, but you can see everything's snapped. That actually is snapped on the other end. Looks like it's cut, but it's not. And it was, one end of it had been lashed with, I don't know if this is cedar bark or the inner bark of tree, but it was wrapped and wrapped and wrapped and tied. And that was one of my first, lessons in, okay, they know how to tie. And then as we've gone along, I found some structures that have, absolutely ridiculous, knotages and ties of dried grass that are doing absolutely nothing for, holding anything together. It's like they're just tied for the sake of tying, right? They don't add any greater strength to it. And so this was an example of something that was just tied and tied and tied and tied for no structural purpose whatsoever, but it added to the beauty of the structure. And these are the ends of branches, snapped branches that were off the ground, and they were connected with another tree. They were broken, snapped just to perfect length. And then they were almost like drying racks, like they were mimicking drying racks for fish or for hides or for whatever. So that was in a video called "A Study."
Was the grass from anywhere nearby that you could see, or they had to bring the grass in?
Yeah, there's a wetland just to the left of this, maybe 20 meters, where there's some tall grasses. So that's where they would have gotten it from, I assume. And then I found an area where, this was 2 or 3 winters ago, where I found a bunch of these small little structures, and they had used, is this like a, what's this called? Horsetail. It's an ancient plant. And they had been using these just to bundle them together. Again, not adding any strength to the structure of the, like this could have stood on its own, but they were using these to tie. So there were several of those in this one particular area.
Is there an opening on the other in the front of it, or is it just all kind of crunched together?
That's just what it is. So this was in a conservation area, quite a bit off trail.
No, but I'm just saying nobody can sit in there or fit in there, right?
No. So that was about 1.5 feet, 2 feet high. So it's very tiny.
That makes absolutely no practical sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's no use for them whatsoever. But because I found quite a few of these, it made me wonder, is this just a maker's mark, or is this the little ones learning? Is it just another moment in my journey of lessons and understanding, teaching me that they can use anything to tie bundles together? So anyway, 3 little pictures that I wanted to show. I don't really have any, pictures in order, but maybe I could just work through a couple of some of my favorites here.
Oh, wow.
So this is the first structures I found back in 2015. And I found it with my daughters, and it wasn't quite this thick. It was much thinner. And over time, it grew thicker and thicker walls. And then these cross beams were added. And I'm sure, like everyone here, these horizontals are often a real telltale sign that like a human, if humans were just collecting wood like this and putting it up against the tree, they wouldn't think of adding these pieces through here. But they were woven in and out, and they were so securely snug in there. They were just beautiful. And there's something else I'd like to mention, which I think is quite common. Many of us find structures with 1 or 2 long arms that seem to extend out to the side of the structures. People have called them ground antennas or grounding aerials or whatever. Yeah. Again, I don't know the purpose, but it seems to be a thing that many of us are finding. So I just wanted to make note of that.
Well, some of them are just for support too. I mean, or at least serve the purpose of support as well.
Yes. And also, I'm sure we can relate to, in many structures, there's often 1 or 2 really interesting curly ones, like with neat curves to it, that are placed almost like just like a thing of beauty, like just to add a little bow.
So when you first came across this in 2015, do you know what you were looking at right away, or take some time?
Sorry, when I first found it, what? Sorry, Brian?
When you first found that first one, you said this one here. Did you know what you were looking at right away, or
like, did I know what it was right away, or was I?
Did you know it was a Sasquatch structure, or did it take some time for you to know?
It was thinner. It was thinner before I found it, and it built over time. Like I found it in the fall winter, and this was the following summer.
No.
Now, interestingly, right next was where I found.
You missed my question. Hold on a second. You missed my question. This is the first structure you found, right?
No,
is-
it's not the first structure.
Oh, I'm
It
sorry.
was one
Okay,
of
well
the
then my
first.
question, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's few.
Go ahead then. My question is irrelevant then, as most of my questions are. Just ask Mr. Beans.
So we talked about how do we know that these structures are, you know, not built by kids or whatever. Well, we have no definitive proof, but I did come across some amazing prints in an area where there were structures actually on both sides of the river. And I made these casts. And this was in the springtime. It was right after an ice storm. The river had literally just melted. It was freezing cold still. And these prints, I found a whole bunch of them in the mud. The mud was still frozen itself. And like I took off my boots and I could barely make an impression in it. And they were just so fresh. So this, and they came out from underneath a really low hanging tree. It's like, how did they come from under there? Like and they walked straight to the river. And then I actually got pictures of the prints in the water, in the river. And I think there's one right here. And again, the river, it was freezing cold. And I came back the next day and I found these. And these prints went right across to the other side of the river where there's other structures. And again, this is early April. Like,
is that under the water?
Still freezing. That's under the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's along the bank of the river, right next to where I found those other prints. So they were walking bare feet across the river to the other side at a time when you're still wearing your winter boots and your hat and your gloves and everything. So just another, you know, little amazing moment in my journey of learning, right? And being guided to discover more of what they're here for or teaching us about. Sorry, just lost that. This is a beautiful structure that I found. I was actually on my way, sadly, to a funeral of my uncle, and I had a couple hours. I arrived a bit early, so I looked around for a conservation area and I walked through, and I ended up way off trail following these unique looking rocks in the ground. And I found this, and this has been in lots of my videos. It's a spectacular structure, but something really unique happened. The following summer, I brought my daughters here, and we visited on the way to the cottage, and we came back a day and a half later. And not only was there a brand new structure that had been built, sorry, I'm missing it, but right next to the structure is a rock, and a really mossy rock. And there had been a heart cut into the moss and flipped over. So a heart sign had been freshly cut and left in the moss. And I made a video on that. I don't have it up right now, but this location continues to be a very, very special and powerful place. I found prints
on the
river next to here. I'm sorry.
Bring that picture up again. Was that yeah, same picture? Was that X over on the bottom kind of right? Was that natural or just fall like that?
Behind it?
Yeah, right there.
Behind it, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, there's two.
Right there,
There's
yeah.
one there, and there's a really big one behind it. And I actually made a video just on this structure. I think it's called A Beautiful Structure. And there's a massive X right in behind here that I unfortunately don't have. Now I found some prints here. Oh, here we are. So here's the heart that had been cut into the moss when I came back with my daughters a day and a half later.
God, yeah.
And a brand new structure had been built. And I might have a picture of that. But anyway, there's another backside to it. There's a couple of leaners here. You can tell it was either that rock or that rock back here. But I found some prints along the river here too. So when I was with my daughters, we walked along and they looked a bit old, but there were no human prints along the mud. But what there was a big, huge cedar, partially broken and fallen, over the edge of the river, and these prints appeared right underneath it, as if something had jumped out of the tree and boom, landed right in the mud beneath it. No prints leading up to it. And then there were prints that walked away from it, leading into just this thick underbrush of other fallen trees.
Wow.
So again, no human footprints. They came out of the tree, then they walked into an area that was impossible for us to walk into. There's my daughter's print, and that was just one of them, leading away from that into the woods. So
I absolutely love that heart. It looks identical
Isn't it?
to one. It looks identical to one that they Sandy Nelson found at the camp out that when they were up here a couple of years ago. They did
Yes.
one in the gravel that was just like that. Just beautiful sentiment.
Oh my gosh. And if it had been there the day and a half before, we for sure would have seen it. We
Yeah.
came back, and you could flip that flat back over onto it and flip it back. Like it had just happened. It was extraordinary. Such a gift, such a blessing. So
Usually they leave it in such a way and in such a place that it's they put all the pieces together, so it's not random, right?
right, they sure do. Now this
It's
structure,
amazing.
yeah, has undergone so many transformations. I found this about 4 years ago. This long pole right here along the bottom used to be through like the X up here. It was elevated, and so these X pieces were always there, and this had been threaded through the wood near the top, creating like a star glyph. And over time, it was taken out and placed in front of the structure for whatever reason. There's some fresh pine in there. A lot of wood came and went. There's a few root balls that you can see. And one interesting thing is I went there 2 winters ago and found what looked to be a piece of, almost like a piece of picnic table, like a piece of painted wood, but it was old and weathered. Who knows where it came from, because there's no picnic table anywhere around here. There's not even garbage cans or anything. So it had been dragged in from somewhere and leaned up against the back of the structure. And then it disappeared, and then it came back, and it's presently still disappeared. So just so random. Like, who would carry something like that in just to leave it? And yeah, just one of those crazy things that happen again. Now, this is a beautiful structure. Unfortunately, the structure is no longer standing. This tree was one of the biggest trees in the entire forest in this whole area. It's just a spectacular pine. And the amount of wood collected for this structure just blew my mind. But I like this in that it does relate to your circles, Brian, because the whole base was like a 1/2 to 2/3 circle of wood laid like a base of a nest.
Mm-hmm.
And then the river leaned up into this huge tree. And so you could get right underneath here. But in the bottom of this tree, it was all rotted out, and you could actually sit inside the tree and have this little shelter here. It was, again, so magical. And unfortunately, this was struck by lightning and it fell. It took the structure down with it. So I still go by to see if the wood would be recycled and used again. And when I was there last, it hadn't been rebuilt yet. This is just so typical of what we find. I know all of us, you've got your one tree in the middle and wood collected and placed and balanced all around the side. And then one end that seems to go a little bit farther out. Yeah,
Right.
just,
That one
incredible.
piece is supporting it in the middle. That's what I find a lot. Yeah. That's what I was talking about.
Yes.
You're saying sometimes the leg or whatever stretches out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks typical of
Yeah. Really.
my place. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there was another really cool one here. And this reminds me of a picture or two that you shared, but yours had boughs, evergreen boughs all over it. This, again, was one of the biggest trees in the forest, which seems to be something, I know Maeve has found similar structures around massive trees, and maybe you have too. Brian and others who are here. But what was cool about this was that there were so many horizontal branches somehow just perfectly magically, not even magically, but masterfully balanced and placed to create like almost sides to this structure. So most of the wood isn't leaning against the tree. They're leaning against these horizontals that are somehow wedged in Y branches that are standing upright, balanced. And it blew my mind how this was standing in the first place. And on the back of the structure, around the sides, had been collected huge pieces of bark, like the inner chunks of layers of bark, almost like from a tree this size, that had been used in the walls. But again, they weren't necessarily sitting on the ground. They were off the ground, somehow just supported with the rest of the wood. So
let me ask you a question while I have it in my mind. Do you find that they do a lot of decorative stuff on these structures? Like I'm finding they will have like pieces of peeled bark leaning off, or they'll have like little ferns on top, or just little things that it looks like it's some thought and some kind of like personal touch. Do you find that in there?
Yep. Something just right there. Yes, I do. Birch bark a lot. And pieces of birch bark sometimes move around from structure to structure. It's like, I remember you were over there and now you're over here. And it's so funny. It's amazing how they can leave such subtle signs, but if you're watching them carefully, you'll see
one of my structures, they had a big Y stick, big huge one, probably 6-7 feet tall, and they kept bringing it back, taking it, bringing it back, moving it around, and stuff like that.
Right. Like, yeah, gosh, it just doesn't end. It doesn't end. So anyway, I've got a lot more to show, but I would love to.
Never wanted to be swept away. I thought I might lose myself. Nobody told me there'd be music, sweet music. Sinking feeling, though I try to brace myself, I can feel me start to surrender, sweet surrender. Everything I needed to everything I needed to forget. When I see you smile, I'm a child, I'm Somebody told me about forgiveness, sweet forgiveness. Now we're waving our flag in the air, the one we sewed together. We're planting our seeds in the ground, roots are growing. Everything I needed to remember
But okay, so let's move on then. But yeah, basically a lot of similarities between the two.
Leanne, what's the energy like the surrounding energy like in that area? Like where you find most of these structures?
So peaceful.
Yeah.
So calming. I often find I can become very emotional in these areas, in so far as that it's a release emotionally for me to be there, which is a good thing, right? Like I'm so supported. I feel so much love and connection that it kind of puts everything in line.
Right.
I've come upon some of these structures and there's deer like literally sitting next to them or walking right by. I found a baby, came upon a newborn baby deer right next to a structure 2 years ago, and the mom was snorting and running around and all nervous because I was there, and I got these beautiful shots, and then I left. I didn't want to bother the baby. I found raccoons in them. Like they seemed. The nature in these areas that I'm finding are strong, powerful, peaceful, very rich. Yeah.
I think that they well, they do these in certain places because there's already like a natural energy there.
Yeah.
And then they work with it, and the structures also work the energy, channel the energy to places, and you can pinpoint it. Like some of those pyramid structures, I think that the the energies work through them up, and then they also come down through them, kind of like how pyramids work. Like it pinpoints it and then disperses it. So I've often wondered if you were to sit in it, if it would work like how pyramids used to work, or how they're supposed to work, where you it kind of like points the energy into like one direct area, and then it disperses it out. So a lot of ancient cultures would meditate and pray in these things, and it just kind of encompasses the energy a lot more. I find that a lot up there in like Hemlock. If you find a place that has a lot of hemlock, it's so peaceful, and it makes you almost just want to go to sleep when you're in there.
I can add to that. There's this lady, Rachel King, I think she has Into the Veil, and they're kind of paranormal, but now they got a really nice connection with the Sasquatch people. So they had these little machines, right? So they took a EMF machine out there, and they also took one of those voice things, right? So whenever they saw a structure like a bent over tree, those kind of pinned down arches, and they checked inside that, and that definitely had a higher EMF, and then whenever they found these structures, they'd put their little machine in there, and it was different than the surrounding neutral, whatever it is,
right?
EMF field. So there's some kind of graphic evidence that's real.
Yeah.
And then there's the Sasquatch seem to want to mark power places, like when you have structures, and there's 4 or 5 structures within walking distance. That's like a little place of power.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I've seen a lot. They use a lot of vines in Georgia. Well, they'll take they do it in like areas where there's like lodgepole pines, or just really tall pines with not a lot to lean against them. So they what they'll do is they'll take like a vine from the area, and they'll put one big tree against another one, and they'll like wrap vines around it to hold it in place and secure it. And another thing they'll do in Canada is they'll take like a tree branch of, say, like a maple or birch or something, and they'll break it, and then they'll take they won't break it all the way off. They'll break it, and then they'll keep the skin attached to the original branch, and they'll wrap it around it, so it kind of peels the skin off the one branch, and then they'll wrap it around it, and then they'll leave it hanging, and it does this like curly cue. My sister finds those all the time up there. I think that's like something that they leave for her because she reacts to that, which is something that I noticed a lot of your videos, is the way that you interact with them and react to their structures, and like your enthusiasm and the love that you show for it. I think that's what really motivates them and like gets them excited, because they love that. That's from my experience, at least. They love when you interact with them while you're looking at them and talking to them and just, you know, telling them like everything that you're noticing about it, because they really like react to that.
Yeah.
That brings me to a question I have for both of you. How many of these things that you've seen do you get the hint or a good solid feeling that they're personally for you?
Mm.
At first, I didn't, but once I started to acknowledge them, I really felt like it became more that they were doing it for me. I think, like Leanne kind of spoke about this earlier, I think that they do these things for people to notice it, and then they kind of pay attention to who notices it. And it's like the crop circle things. And then once you start to interact with them about it and like really connect with them on that, like that's where it starts. It's like the trailhead, I guess you could say, for them. And then they start doing things directly for you, I think.
Yeah.
From my experience, it's the glyphs that they were connecting with me more through, like whatever. But I imagine the structure could be the same thing. What's your experience, Leanne, to that question?
I really agree with what Sam just said. I think that on the one hand, I do feel that the structures are for something beyond me or us. That it's for the forest, for them. It's a creative expression. It's an energetic expression. It's functioning for some very important reason in the forest. But I do think that absolutely they will build or make changes for me to notice. And it's those subtle changes or those quick new builds that sometimes are, I think, for me, in order to learn and then share with everyone who's listening or who was interested in the subject, right? Like one of those learning moments that you can have that mental, emotional, I would say soulful interaction with them. So I think that there's both going on at the same time.
Yeah. So I like what Sam said about the energy. I mean, we all, you know, there's definitely an energy element to them. There's definitely an imitation element to them. I mean, there's no question about that. Reaching out, trying to connect to people. How do you notice me, kind of thing. But what do you think, Leanne, from your experience? And Sam, you can go into it, or anybody, more detail. What do you think they are for? Obviously, some of them, you know, we call them structures, but they're not practical as structures. So there is the energy element to it. There's the imitation element to it by being close to the kids, energy, that kind of thing. But what is your take on it? How do you see it? What do you see them as being?
I see a lot of different things. Some of them in Georgia, we see a lot that look like hunting blinds almost. But you know, like the foliage there and the trees there are totally different. And I think they just work with whatever they have. So in Georgia, it's very it's almost jungle-like. Sometimes there's just vines everywhere. It's just totally different than here on the West Coast stuff. Maybe more, you see it more a little bit on the coast side. But here, like in the Cascade area, you don't see any of this. But they'll do things that almost look like a blind, like a hunting blind, where I think that they might use it to kind of camouflage themselves while they're hunting. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and then there's others that are just huge X's, like, I don't know, man, like 30, 40 foot lodgepole pines that are just X's. I don't know if those are markers or what. And then I see a lot of what looks like little ones mimicking the big guys stuff. And I those are personally like my favorite. Like when I see those, I just connect with those. That's actually the home screen of my phone is one where what I see in my area is a lot is if you find a fork, like a tree fork where there's one base and then the trees will split. They'll take two trees that are near it and they'll break them and X them in between the fork of the tree. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly. I have pictures of it, but and so I'll see that a lot where the little ones will do the same thing. They'll break branches off and they'll cross the branches into the ground and then they'll lay little sticks around it. And I don't know what those mean, but like those are like my favorite things. They work with the forks of trees a lot in my area. I don't know if you see that. There's always sticks in between the forks on the areas that they walk through. So if you go into an area and you'll see like a fork of a tree, and then there'll be sticks jammed in it. And then say like you go back a couple days later and there's more sticks jammed in it. So I don't know if they're like directional markers for how they're walking through an area, or if they're just doing it for me. I'm not real sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Oh, that was
around also.
That was the point I wanted to make about your question is, for me personally, the glyphs, I know they're doing for me, a lot of them. The structures, I don't have that kind of connection with them yet. If they're doing them for me, I know that they leave things that I will recognize by them, but it's a different kind of thing. But
they also leave like the glyphs, but in like trees on the ground. So if you're looking at them from like my height, like almost 6 foot, I don't really notice it. But if you back up or climb up a tree or something and look down and you look at the ground, you'll see the same glyph structures, but with trees. So they're like there'll be like a 20-foot tree laid on the ground and then another one lined up. So it's like a very large glyph, like a huge glyph that you really can't see clearly unless you have a perspective from far away, and then you'll see it on the ground. I don't know if you guys see stuff like that there.
Yeah.
The signs I find around our cottage area some are very similar to the ones I'm finding and putting in my videos, but sometimes they're very different. So, for instance, I still go berry picking up near where I had that crazy, exciting encounter 10 years ago. And this was 2 summers ago. I went along this one particular overgrown trail, and the blackberries were so numerous. And I picked a huge, bowl full, and I went back the next day. And I noticed that literally overnight, at about the 7-8 foot height, like way beyond what anyone could reach, were a bunch of saplings. I counted about 16, 17, the whole way, starting at the trail to like my whole way where I picked berries. The saplings had been freshly snapped. Some of them like snap this way. So everything's still hanging on, but just fresh snap all the way down the trail. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like literally they came through last night and we're just like break. So was that for them? Was that to communicate with themselves as to where they're going, or was that for me?
Which way were they pointing? Were they pointing down the trail? Were they pointing to the berries?
They were not pointing across the trail. They were pointing parallel to the trail. And interestingly, there is a wetland back there. And then I saw one broken along the road, which was pointing back to that area. So was it a way of pointing to a really high density deer area? Because there's tons of deer back there. Who knows? So that's the kind of thing I find up around that area. But these other structures, quite a few of them, not all of them, but I would say a good chunk of them are found either within view of a hiking trail or not too far off, and then you can find them off a hiking trail. And it makes me wonder, we talked about this earlier, are they being built in these areas for people to notice, for people to see, for people to have some sort of question, or even just looking at them? It's the sacred geometry, is the energy somehow infecting in the best way possible our consciousness, whether we realize it or not? And is that changing us? Is it changing the way our bodies are functioning? Is it do you know what I mean? Like, is it altering us in some way for the betterment, for the positive? Just looking at them, not even understanding what they're all about. They're like
a catalyst or an impetus for awareness.
Yes.
And then they kind of pay attention to who notices. I think it's like crop circles, or what we talked about earlier. I do believe they do these things to see who notices, and also trigger people.
You want me to do that?
You know, to like catch their eye and be like, what is that? You know, and then it gets the gears going in the head, you know.
And even so far as if there's a person who walks on a trail every day, walking their dog and they're in their phone for most of the time, and one day a structure shows up next to the trail and they happen to take notice and then keep walking, and then you know, maybe the next day or two it changes or there's another one, it may cause them to be like, oh, I wonder where that came from, and they may make a casual comment to somebody and they would be like, oh yeah, I saw one of those too, that's so weird, and then that conversation just continues,
Right,
filtering in through people who have no I've never considered this before, but that is where it begins. That's where
I think you're right, and it goes on to the people like us
right.
who see these structures, are responding to them, and then put them on YouTube. And guess what? Thousands of people see it all the time. Thousands. And then now it's like part of a whole culture of, you know, that message goes out through people like us who are paying attention, or maybe we're the first ones that got moved. And then we make a video about it, or take photos and make albums and stuff, and then that gets shared. And that's pretty cool, actually.
It's a collective elevation. It's a collective expansion.
I don't think,
We're all
I don't think it's any coincidence that the Sasquatch people are reaching out to us. You know, as spiritual teachers to so many people these days, and also these structures and all this stuff are showing up, because it's like, to Sam's point, it's another way of saying, hello, I'm here. Do you see me? It's an invitation to connect with them. I don't think, I think that
this is
tied in. There's no doubt that that is all tied in together. They're coming out, and whoever, you know, has got the eyes or the heart to see them, it's an invitation to connect.
Yeah. This is the disclosure thing that people keep coming to. You hear a lot about disclosure, you know, like this is how they do it. You know,
Which is exactly the opposite argument of, like, people say, well, it's around campgrounds. It was obviously people. But the point of it is that they're trying to connect with those people.
Yeah. And they're people too. Yeah. So when people say, you know, oh, that's just people doing that, you're like, yeah, it is. It's the Sasquatch people.
It's great. So true.
Exactly. So they're not really
the same goes for the ET people. Like there's almost as many people who are in CE5 groups, that's Contact Initiative 5, whatever it is, where they go out and watch for the flying saucers. They're all over. Almost every major city has one or two of those groups.
Right.
And, you know, there may be 5 to 12 people, and they go out to the hills and they just look and play around with their flashlights. They meditate and they try to bring them in. But look, there's no reason why the UFO has to have a light on. You know what I mean? That they don't have to have. They're not FAA regulated. You know what I mean? You know, if they didn't want to be seen, they wouldn't. So they definitely have the lights on, and they do these things. They fly in formations and blink and things like that.
You're not a flying motel. What's that place where we'll keep the light on for you? What's that? I'll keep the light on for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They do this because I go up to a SETI a lot, the SETI Ranch in Washington, and they do that there. They do things on purpose to show people. You know, they'll put on a show, and like you'll see them move, you'll see the light move, and then it'll disappear, and it'll pop up somewhere else, and it's the same idea. It's disclosure. They're trying to make people aware of their presence, and it's not like Mars Attacks or a movie, you know, where they're just going to land in the middle and there's going to be news everywhere and they want to speak to your leader or whatever. But this is how it starts grassroots. People talk about it, starts to spread the conscious awareness of everything, and then it goes from there. Then they can present themselves, I guess,
those people who go to that ranch you're talking about, what's the name of that ranch?
A SETI.
The SETI ranch, right? All the people who go to that ranch, they make their little videos and they share their videos, and
right,
you know,
exactly.
Out there.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam, I've asked you this before, I'm sure. What area of Washington State are you in?
I'm in Oregon.
Oh, you're in Oregon?
Yeah, I'm in Bend, Oregon, but I go up to Washington.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You need to come up to my area.
I know, I do. As
You
soon
do?
as all this, as soon as all this stuff chills out, yeah, like next year, I'm gonna be
Cool.
I'll be everywhere.
Cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a
What
question,
I like-
Sam. I wanted to actually, so you have a connection with a clan in Oregon now too?
Yeah, two
Okay.
of them. I work more with one, but I interact with them.
Okay, so they're all people and whatever, but and you had connection with Sasquatch in Georgia too, right? Like,
Yeah,
my question is,
Yeah.
do you see any differences in the ones from Georgia as from the ones on the West Coast? Because from what I've been seeing and people have been saying, the ones back there, they like to show up and they're going the physical and they're not that afraid to show themselves too much. For the ones where I am, it might be
Georgia?
Yeah, but these guys out here, they're not much into that as much, at least my guys. So
No.
what do you find the differences between the two clans or behaviors?
What I see is in Georgia, they do show up in physical a lot. They do a lot of, they're a little more in your face, but not like intimidating. But they also do a lot of the metaphysical paranormal stuff too. Here, they don't really like to be seen as much. They will be around and they'll let you know that they're there, but they stay back a little bit further, you know. You can hear them walking around and you can hear them. They'll do a lot of calls and stuff near you. But like when Vavion comes to my camp or whatever, you won't even know she's there. And then she'll do something right next to you. I mean, like when I say next to me, I mean like within feet of me, she'll make a call, like an owl call or a whistle, you know. But in Georgia, they're definitely like, they don't have any problem walking right up to you at all. And
yeah, that's I find that interesting. And why is that? Is it more remote? Is there more trust there? Or are they just different people? Or
I'm not sure, man. Well, okay, let me go back. There's a place in Georgia we've gone to, and it's the place that like Arla and Keith kind of got everyone together to do our camp outs. And what we've kind of come to, me and Ginger started joking around about it, and then Arla and everyone, but it feels like a school, almost like a training area for us, where it's like an agreed upon place where they can interact with us, we can interact with them in a safe environment. So like that's the place we see eye shine all the time. And it's but I've learned so much from that, you know. And I think we go there, they come there, and then we kind of interact with each other. It's like a learning, like a school kind of, where here I feel like I have this agreement with one of our groups where they have young ones and they let the young ones come into our camp, because we have kids too. We have 2 sons, and they let the young ones come into our camp at night and explore and do stuff. So like I actually had one night, this kind of goes to like the fire pits that you guys find. One night we were sleeping in our tent, and it was me and my family, and we heard, kind of near the forest road, we heard something knocking, like bop, 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 bop. And this was like 3 a.m. And it woke me up. And I was like, all right, someone's here. And then it got quiet for a minute. And then by where our tent was, we had a fire pit. And then we had a bunch of firewood that was laid out, like not cut yet, but branches and stuff that we had drug out that we, you know, were chopping off as needed to add to the fires. And maybe like a minute after we heard the knocking, I started hearing somebody chopping wood with my hatchet that I had laid next to my firewood. So it was almost like an adult was knocking, saying like, hey, we're here. And I laid there and I was like, cool. And then it was like they let the little ones come in and play. And one of them picked up the hatchet and was like practicing or pretending to chop firewood, because we had been doing that the whole day before. And it was like, you could just hear it. It was like, chop, chop, like, you know, just practicing, like, I want to try that, you know. And then that happened for about 5-10 minutes, and then it stopped and they left, and it was just quiet. But I just think sometimes that's how this stuff works, is they want to interact with us in that way, not directly, but just like like a safe zone, you know.
Yeah, I would know. So my question was, so then it took it in a different area. That maybe, so is it typical across people who are having experiences in Georgia that they see them more, or is it because of you guys are a special group that are connected to them?
I don't know.
You're not sure?
I don't know. I mean, because there's always commonalities. You know, I'll connect with people in Georgia and they'll have similar experiences. But it seems like with our group in particular, we get a lot of the same type of activity, and then it follows us home, and we start getting the same stuff at our houses too. You know,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I mean, Sam. I mean, let's face it. I mean, when I have my gatherings, or when I go to other gatherings, when people of high energy, with a bunch of us are all together, like crazy stuff happens. I mean, magical stuff, right? So it's not surprising that they would be doing that kind of stuff. So let's play a funny little game here before Leanne pulls the plug on us. And hope she don't, and, you know, and we're not trying to get rid of you. You stay as long as you want, but let's play Ripley's Believe It or Not. Now, if you were going to put a story in Ripley's Believe It or Not of one of your experiences, and Beef Wellington, you can get in on this too if you want. But our two guests and Mr. Wellington, if you were going to put in a story in Ripley's Believe It or Not, what would it be? So we haven't heard from you for a while, Leanne. Go ahead.
So in relation to Bigfoot, in relation to
like the wildest, like forest out, like most woo woo, or I don't like that word, but just the most crazy spiritual, whatever, just way out there kind of experience.
I have to say, one of the biggest things that's happened to me recently, this happened, was it last summer? I was putting audio out at our cottage, and as I mentioned before, we've been having little ones run by for a few years now, which to me expresses so much trust. And I was once again saying goodnight, and it was quite late. There was nobody around, and our property starts it's quite a bit higher at the back of our property, and then it comes down and down and then down to the lake. So at the back of our property, where it's a bit higher up, I hear the little bipedal footsteps coming right towards me. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's a little one. So I start whispering into the audio, oh my gosh, listen. And the footsteps stop. And then the footsteps keep coming, and then they stop. And I was completely silent, and they came closer and closer. And I was like whispering into the audio, like, do you hear this? Like, there's one right there. And it got so close as to our outhouse. So where I was setting this up was on this rock, and it's maybe about 25 feet to the outhouse and our woodshed where lots of stuff happens. And it got that close, I could tell. And I had a flashlight on me, and I knew I'm not going to turn it on. They're coming to me in trust, and I'm going to stay here in the dark and just to take this in. And it got that close. And then I spoke to it. I said, is that you? And it gave a little grunt. It was like, arr. I said, oh my God, that was you. I got another little grunt. Arr. Again, same noise. I said, again, same little noise. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, literally, there's one right over there, and it's responding to me talking to it. And then right behind me, oh my God, I almost like messed my pants because it startled me so much. Right behind me in the woods, steps, like a choo, 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 huge footsteps that had been there the whole time. There wasn't a lick of wind. And I'd been back there already for about 15 minutes talking to the audio and enjoying the night. And one behind me, bigger, maybe it was an older sibling or whatever, just keeping an eye on things, walked behind me towards the lake. And then the little one ran back to where it came from. And I got it all on audio. And it was the most incredible thing. It startled me so much. And I thought, oh my, there's one right there. And there was one right there. And so I just went back to the cottage and I went to bed. And I fell right asleep. Like, right? But it was so profound. And again, one of those moments of, I can't believe that just happened. What a gift. What a gift.
Yeah.
Mr. Wellington,
Yes.
could you contribute something to the show instead of just sitting there like bumping the log?
I'm taking it all in. You know what? I've always enjoyed Sam, and I'm loving Leanne's stories. These are great.
Yeah, absolutely. But do you have
most
what is your
most of y'all
Ripley's Believe It or Not story with experience?
Well, it's kind of okay. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I've got two of them that are pretty funny. Or one of them's funny. One of them is just a really cool experience that was definitely a Ripley's Believe It or Not. And early on in my interactions with the local clan, I went outside. It was probably 11 or 30 or 12 o'clock at night. I'm not sure. And I was standing next to my woods. And on a lark, I just decided to make an owl call, right? And I'm not very good at it. It sounds really pretty funny, and I know it does. But I made it anyway. And I got 3 owl calls back. One from probably 20 feet to my left, one from 10 feet back in the woods right in front of me, and one from up on a hill, which about 30 feet away. And they did it in series. It was like the first one to the left, then the one in the middle, the one up at the top. The one at the top, when they did it, they sounded worse than I did, and it caught in their throat, and they had to cough. And it was a man cough. I mean, it was right. It was hilarious. And so I started laughing. I said, "Oh, hey, that was a good one. I appreciate that." And then the other, which was even more unbelievable to me, was not more than a year later. It was not this last Father's Day, but the Father's Day before. My dog died. My big dog, who actually wasn't very fond of the Sasquatch people, frankly. And I think they finally came to some sort of understanding over time, but anytime they were around, it really freaked her out. Well, she got sick. She was only 5 years old and died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma kind of thing. And the night of her death, I carried her. She was a 100-pound dog. So, I mean, it's not like I just picked her up very often, but she no longer could walk and she was having a hard time breathing. So it was, again, pretty late at night. Started about 10 o'clock. I knew this was the night she was going to pass. And I carried her out to the front lawn because it was Father's Day. It was a beautiful night out. Stars were shining. And it was cooler air outside than it was inside, even though we've got air conditioning. And as I make her comfortable and I make myself comfortable, I'm laying behind her and I'm petting her. My clan made it very clear. I think there were 5 of them in the woods. The previous woods I just mentioned that are next to my house. And they made, I might start crying, by the way, so just bear with me.
Go for it.
They made their presence known and that they were in mourning with me. They were supporting me through my dog, me sitting with my dog and comforting her through her passing over process. And that was probably one of the most touching things that I've ever experienced from my clan. I mean, they've done a lot of really cool things for me, but it was before they'd really started to work with me. They had it was just a very touching, emotional time. And actually, I called out to them to help her because she was in so much pain, and they didn't choose to intercede. And I kind of found out why later. And I was a little bit upset because, no one likes to see their beloved fur baby go through that kind of pain. But they just really showed a degree of caring that was truly a Ripley's Believe It or Not moment, as far as I'm concerned.
No, I want to ask you something, because you said you felt them. Describe how you felt them. Did you feel them energetically? How did you feel their emotional support, or what was that experience? I think that's important.
So describing how you feel her presence is difficult to begin with, just because
I mean, in this particular
there's just a
incident,
knowing
you know,
that-
how you felt their support for you
No,
and what you were going through. Sorry.
right. So as I was laying behind my dog with my hand on her and I was petting her, and I felt from the woods an energy of love coming my direction. There were vocalizations of very mourning, sad sounds. As the evening progressed, it was, okay, I'm telling you, it was surreal. It was, like I said, one of the strongest emotional experiences I think I've ever had.
So they were
Next to
actually
have a loved one
vocalizing
die,
like mournful sounds, like in respect to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. And they just really made sure that I knew that they were there. Now, so here's my house. I've got woods on both sides of me. And I know for a fact they were on one side, and I was closer to the other side, but I'm pretty sure that they were behind me as well, much closer, but they weren't making any sounds behind me. They were all the vocalizations were coming from the woods off to the right of my house.
Yeah, it's hard to explain the energy because I don't think there's not words that really can accurately.
You just
describe.
know. It's just all of a sudden, oh, they're here.
That's
Right.
amazing.
Yeah, they have their energy has a signature to it, like our voices do. So, like, you know,
Very much
if you
so.
hear a voice, you know who's talking. But if
Immediately.
Yeah. So they don't necessarily use their voices very often, but their energy has a signature to it too, where you know exactly who it is or which group, you know, or when they're there. So yeah, I know what you mean.
My mind speak experiences are mostly through energy. I mean, there's different mind speaks. There's thought placement, that's mind speak, all that stuff. I do have the actual voices, but it's usually energy or thought placement or something like that, like you were saying, Sam.
Yeah. The only voice I ever hear is Babion's voice.
Yeah.
The rest of it is it's like a thought transfer from somebody, or
Right. Or like one of the things that happens constantly to me that I just love, because it's, you know, instant gratification, thought placement, and then there's the answer immediately. It's just like no brainer stuff, you know. But anyway, Sam, give us your Ripley. I'm going to go make myself another coffee, but I want you to give us your Ripley's Believe It or Not story, and I will turn my mic off and stuff. And I will, and I'll have something to look forward to when I come and review the tape and listen to it again. So you want to go on with that? I'll be right back.
all right.
You're entry in the Ripley's Believe It or Not? Or?
Right. Yeah, I've got a ton of weird. I mean, most of my stories are weird.
Sam, you muted.
Something happened to the sound. Brian muted your
Oh,
sound.
okay. There we go. Is
something.
that better?
There you go. Yep.
All right. So when we're in their cabin at night, they like to set up like a sentry or somebody to stay near the cabin, kind of keep an eye on us, or, you know, let us know when they're. And then, so what they'll do is they'll do like if somebody gets up or something happens, you'll hear like a call or a wood knock or something right next to the cabin, and then you'll hear it echo down the lake. Kind of like what you were just talking about, how your owl call went like that. But the lake's like 1.5 miles long. So you'll hear, you'll get up in the middle of the night and you'll hear like a wood knock right next to the cabin, like bang. And then it'll go halfway down the lake. You'll hear it again, bang. And then you'll hear it like way down there. And it's not like an echo. It's like they have like a chain mail. Yeah. Like they're like, someone's up. And then someone's like, hey, someone's up. And then down there, they're like, somebody's up. And so I think that's how they communicate through the whole area. But one night in particular, there's a alpha there. I've yet to meet him. I've been waiting to go up there and like meet him in person. And one night I got up, I went to the bathroom, and right across, there's like a little cove next to the lake, and right across on the other side of the cove, he was there and he did an owl call. And it was a barred owl, and the owl call was so loud it rattled the windows in the cabin. And because I was standing right next to the window, and he was like, ooh, 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 ooh. And when he did that long one, the windows were like, and I was like, holy shit. You know?
I love that.
Yeah, that's like my short one, because all my other ones are kind of weird, I guess you could say. But
Okay, what's our topic here? We're all weird, right? We are
Right.
way out.
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
are way outside normal.
Right, but like they can get weird, and they can get long and drawn out. So I don't want to.
Because you don't want to forget any of the details.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And there's another time that I was going. There's a lake. We call it Lost Lake. It's over a ridge back on the south side of the property, and I go there a lot. That's like a place that I like to go to, because I always feel like they're there, and that's where I see a lot of the structures from like little ones. And one time I was going back there. I told Michael the story. I was going back there, and I came to a thicket, like a cedar thicket, and there's like these clusters of cedar where you just can't see. It's just so dark in there, right? So I came over this hill, I walked down, and I see this cluster, and I got a message that said, "Don't go in there." And I was like, okay. Wow. So I started to go around it, and I started to go, like, walked around. I usually walk through it, but I started to walk around it, and I'm walking, and I'm like, okay, I should be getting to the lake soon. And I come to where I can see the water through the trees, and I'm like, okay. So I start walking on the hill, and I'm like, all right, I'm at the lake. And I get to the lake, and I'm like, this is not the lake. Like, where am I? And I'm like, totally, like, where the hell am I? It took me like 5 minutes, and I'm like, this lake is gigantic. The lake that I go to is like a small beaver pond type thing, where it's basically just a tributary that got dammed up, so it formed this lake. This was like a lake, and I'm like, totally blown. So anyways, after about 5 minutes, I'm looking around, and I'm like, this is my lake. This is the lake that the cabin's on, but I'm half a mile down the lake. So I was walking southwest, and I ended up northeast. Like, so after they told me don't go in there, I ended up, so instead of like, I was here, I was trying to go here, and I ended up over here. Don't know how. Wasn't really like a significant time loss. Just.
Do you feel like they were protecting you from something, or just they wanted their privacy?
Absolutely. I feel like there was something there that they didn't want me to interact with, and so they put me out of harm's way.
Nice.
It really felt like they kind of moved me, like,
yeah,
Wow.
So.
Well, actually,
that's
that was
a good story.
Sorry, that was a phony wow, because I didn't hear the whole story. So that wow was insincere. I didn't hear what you said, but it was wonderful. Hey, we gotta be
really.
As soon as I said it, I said that was ridiculous, because I didn't hear a word you said other than. Okay, so hey, I'm thinking.
I have one.
What's that? What's that, Beans?
So I have one. One.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I've already told a story about the Sasquatch sticking his hand inside my chest. That was, and then another time my leg went invisible. But they gave me a vision one day. And this is back in the first couple of years, where they were talking to me, they kind of giving me hints of the all one and no space. So I was living on the second story of an apartment building, and 17 steps going up. So I was going up these steps, and then my apartment was the first door on the right, so it was like real close. So I was going up the steps, and by the time I got onto the landing and start to reach for the doorknob, I started to get this vision. And the vision, and this is like daytime. I mean, I'm standing up, going to not open the door. This is pretty normal stuff. And I got this vision, and the vision was was like these mountains, mountain after mountain, right? But each mountain was a being, like the man of the mountain, or the king of the mountain, the mountain king or something, you know what I mean? It's like each mountain was a king. And then if you I was zoomed in, where you had boulders, and the boulders were people, right? And then it's pretty complex. I don't know if I can go into the whole thing because it was too much. So by then I just about turned the knob on the front door. And then the four-legged creatures came, right? It was like sort of like it was like a big, it's like a sort of like an omni view or something of the earth. The four-legged creatures came with the elephants in the lead because they're the biggest of the four-legged, right? And it showed all of the animals lined up, sort of like in this, like a line, and they're all walking, and they're all kind of like coming my way. And then there's the elk and the moose and the deer and the horses and the zebras and the, everything that's got four legs was there. Just was I was being shown that, and then what? Then I saw it zoomed over to the oceans, and it showed me, and I was shown the different uh, whales, the different kind of whales, and then the different kind of dolphins, and it showed all that there's this. It was, but each time I saw one, there was an intelligent connection between me and them, right? So it was like a recognition. They recognized me, I recognized them, and then it sort of zoomed out to the humans, and I actually saw this monks, this bunch of monks in brown robes. Turned out it was Thich Nhat Hanh, and I didn't know who he was, but it was like this holy man. I'm going, why am I seeing these guys? And then there was all the birds. I saw all the birds, in this vision, and then it zoomed out. And then by the time it zoomed out to see the whole earth, right? And I started to see the ET people, and the ET people were actually fighting a war in real time, and they stopped and turned and looked at me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going, whoa. By the time that happened, yeah. By the time that happened, I was like, I had to lay down because it was like too much. It was like a 3D experience of actually being there, you know what I mean? And while I'm wide awake, I'm laying down in my bed. And then the last thing I remember is a planet came to me and actually said hello. And I'm going like, wow, you know what I mean? So Mother Earth is alive, and each of her mountains is alive and can say hello to you, and every river can say hello to you, every lake, every animal, every bird, every fish, every whale, all the ET people, all the forest people.
You see, that just shows you that
Oh.
your reputation as the world's handsomest man goes like all around the
I don't
galaxy.
know about that, but that's a vision like that. It takes years to process, but it was basically saying all are available all the time. We're all connected, and it's all available to us all the time. And that's how the Sasquatch do it. They're in that all one place, and so that was pretty spectacular.
So let me ask everybody one more question here, if I may. Where are your lessons taking you? Where do you think we're being led to, or whatever? I mean, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. I think that we're being introduced to who we truly are ourselves. So it turns out that you begin a quest to find out about Sasquatch or whatever. But then you find out if you have a true connection and you're on the right path, I guess, or whatever, that it's really about finding out about yourself. And so I think to me, they're just opening me up and us up to who we truly are, because when you understand the connective nature of everything, and like we're all one and all connected and all that stuff that they have taught us all, there's no judgment. It's a vibration of love. And that really is simply where all the change comes in, where we will change as a people and quit doing all the negativities, all the judgment, all the wars, all the hatred, all the boxes of perceptions that are bullshit. So they're trying to open us up to who we truly are. And that's the big picture, man, for me. And that's huge. That's like nothing bigger than that. So how about for you guys? What whoever wants to start, what are the Sasquatch people here to do? What are they teaching you? Why are they here? What's your feeling?
Leanne, you're on mute. I think check your mute button.
Who?
Nope,
Right,
now Leanne's unmute.
yeah.
Anybody want to take it away from there? What did you hear what I said?
Well, totally.
Yep.
For me, I totally agree. I think that their main thing when they interact with us is to wake us up.
Yes.
Is to break us, like awaken us from this illusion of like this physical world, like the illusion of separation from the physical world, and wake up to our true self. Because I think that like I don't want to get like all new agey and all that, but I do feel like we are ascending in a way, you know, like we are moving up higher, you know, consciously, like we're growing spiritually, consciously, everything. So in order to really get the ball rolling, they gotta wake us up, and that's their way of doing that is they, you know, working with us when we start to wake up and guide us to a point where we have a true connection with like our true self, like the self that they want us to be, not this false self that we've been sleepwalking through forever.
Yeah, I mean that love vibration I was in is a completely different reality and understanding than our regular understanding, and that's where they're trying to get us to. Yeah. Amazing.
Because that's the real you. That's your true self. Is
exactly
that love vibration? That's where you come from.
Right.
Yeah. Who's up? Are you done there?
Can you hear me now?
Sam?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
You're quiet.
I fully agree with everything you've said, Sam and Brian. Absolutely. And if I can just add one thing to that, is also they're helping us unlearn or let go of the lies that we've been led to believe our whole lives, from textbooks, from the mainstream media, from everything that we've been taught on the nature of this earth and reality, using our five senses only. Like it has been a journey of remembering and discarding of the lies that could, you know, are so ingrained into everything in our bodies and in our brains. And going back to the emotional aspect, or just the power of that love, I think I mentioned this last week, Brian and Michael, that when I first started on this journey of structures and doing audio, the soul cracking emotion, what I went through personally was so powerful. The love that I felt for the first time in my waking memory was so powerful. It was almost painful. It was debilitating. It was like, in the best way possible. It broke me apart in such a way that it's been one of the greatest gifts, but it was very uncomfortable. and I was put into such a place of discomfort, realizing all these lies and realizing how closed my heart and soul had been for so long. It was a profound spiritual, emotional experience that, it's been, you know, one of the greatest gifts I've gone through. So.
I will second that.
Yeah.
I will second that too.
But unfortunately, that's not going to be enough, Kevin. Now you have to do the story. Seconding it isn't going to get you off the hook. You're up.
Oh,
unless you have more to say, Leanne, or
I'm sorry, say that again.
Did you have more to say, or are you good?
No, I think. Thank you.
Kev?
Thank you.
Beef Wellington.
So Beef Wellington, you're so funny.
You see when he says so. As soon as he says those two words, you know, a bunch of crap is coming out. I'm just joking.
Yeah, I see how you are. Anyhow, so for me, I don't necessarily see an end goal for what they're trying to accomplish with us. What I see, I can only speak to what they're doing with me right this moment and what I think may happen in the near future. For me, they've made it really clear they're really working on me with frequency, vibration, energy, and they continue to do that. And it's more along the lines of every thought, every behavior, every action has an energy that ripples throughout the world. What you throw out there, starting from just your brain or the thoughts that occur, it has an impact everywhere. And they've really just, I'm not gonna say harped on, but they've really emphasized that things like truth, integrity, there are things that have way higher vibration than other things, and then there are other things that have really low vibration that bring you down. And what they're working on me with now, just in the immediate, is, look, you need to be aware of what you're thinking, what you're putting in your head, and where that's taking your vibration and how that's impacting your ability to interact with not just us, the Sasquatch people, but those around you that you love. And I mentioned this to you earlier, Brian. They're working on some stuff with me, but I've kind of deprioritized it to my own detriment, and for a variety of reasons. And that's what they're working on me with, is, look, you need to really focus on these things that bring your vibration up. And it's not just external, it's working on yourself. It's working on what's going on inside of you. It's healing whatever traumas you have. It's making sure that you're speaking truth, making sure that, you're speaking love. And those are the things you're putting out there, not worrying about the political garbage that's going on in the country, not worrying about, the fear mongering of the virus people.
Yeah.
Your focus shouldn't be there. Your focus should be here and what you're putting out, not taking in, not being a consumer, but being a broadcaster, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of what they're doing with me. And I see that that's going to take me a lot further along towards what you guys are saying, but I don't necessarily see that as a given, right? I see that as a great ideal. I hope I achieve someday, but
yeah, you will.
The thing you brought up about fear is so huge, because they won't teach you in a state of fear. They won't go beyond your fear level or whatever,
True.
And the other thing is that we're controlled by fear,
Yes.
and, through the media and all this other stuff, and just the whole world. I mean, it's pretty obvious to anybody with half a brain that, we're being controlled by fear in so many different ways. But I just wanted to say the biggest gift that the Sasquatch people, and this is tied in, have given me lately is, Kev, I was getting all tied up, because Sue's a U.S. citizen, and I think your election down there has worldwide implications and all this stuff. And anyway, I was getting all tied up, and I was, putting my energy and my emotions into it, and it wasn't where I wanted to be. And I knew it wasn't, because I've been on that high level. I know I have to be, but you get backtrack and you get all involved in it, and you kind of backslide. So anyway, one night I went into the woods after dark. Just went in there and said, "You guys got to help me out here. I'm just not who I am. I'm not who I want to be. I'm thinking about all this stuff." And immediately, literally, and ever since, I really haven't worried about any of it. They took the fear away, because concentrating on that stuff is just, we're putting our energy into it. Putting our energy into it is keeping us on a lower vibration than where we want to be. So they took all that fear away, whatever, and I just trust, because it was just amazing. It was like they turned the light switch on. Okay, it's gone. Raise above that. That's over with. Those lower negative vibrational thoughts or whatever. It's so restricting. It's like shackles around us. But anyway, that to me was just such a great gift I received lately. And fear is a big thing.
Fear is a huge thing. Yeah, I think it's probably the biggest thing. It's like,
I agree.
Love or fear. Fear is like a physical world, like human thing. It doesn't exist on the spirit side, like on our true self, because we're made of love. Like, we come from love.
Yes.
So when, you know, fear is what pulls you into your human surroundings and your human roles and this physical existence. So like Kevin, what you were talking about, you know, those things that you and all of us, you know, it's not just you, it's all of us. Like we all have
Right.
these things, like our biases, our perspectives, our perceptions, like the programming, the conditioning, the stuff Leanne touched on, all those things. We get so wrapped up in those things as us, like, this is me, I'm, you know, I'm this guy. And
Right.
and those things keep us from knowing ourselves, truly knowing ourselves, like ourself with a capital S, self. And so
Right.
they're pointing these things out to us to be like, you don't need this. Like, this is just a layer of the onion that you need to take off, you know? And then once you start peeling back these layers, man, you start realizing, like, I'm not any of those things. I'm not any of those things. And then,
Right.
and then they hit you with the love, like Brian
Right.
talks about. You know, they'll hit you with that. And it's like, that's us. That's
exactly
us, you know? And so they want us to peel those layers off and just address them, fix them ourselves, because we're the only ones that can fix it. Like, nobody else can. So they're like, hey, you should take a look at this. You know, this is something you need to work on, and you got to sit with it and work through it. And then it takes years, you know, it doesn't happen overnight. So, and then that's how you get to the point where none of this is as important as it used to be. None of that crap. You know,
I
like all the
totally
stuff,
agree.
all the stuff we see on the news, we're like, I don't even care about that right now. You know, like, I just want to go sit in the woods, man.
Yes.
Beans, did you want to talk on this subject?
What's that?
Mr. Beans, did you want to talk on it?
Yeah, I do. The question is, where's this going? Where are we headed? Who are we? And all that kind of stuff, right? Is that the question?
Why are the Sasquatch people reaching out to us, and where do you think it's headed? And I agree with Kevin that it's not like going to a destination.
Yeah, okay.
It's ongoing. But
Where do you think it's headed?
what's the purpose?
I think where it's headed. Go ahead. You finished?
I'm done. Yeah.
Are you done? Okay.
I'm
Where
done.
I think it's headed. Well, if I start talking and then you talk, then I stop talking to listen to you talk, and then when I stop talking, you stop talking.
Are you talking?
This is it.
Brian, we're going to mute you.
Stop talking. And am I talking now? Can you hear me talking?
This is it.
Okay, so I'm going to stop talking. Now you
The
talk.
place where Sasquatch are taking us to is this is it. Yeah. So let me explain what this is it means. You know, there's this thing called remote viewing, and what remote viewing is these guys sit at a desk and they get this, they read some card and you know, and they start drawing things, and then they get impressions from, you know, someplace in the past or some other location across the world, right? They get these impressions. And then you get 2 or 3 of these guys together and they can end up with a whole picture of what's going on in another location, another time, right? What that means is that all points in time and space are here. This is it. Yeah. All points in time and space are here within us, unaccessed from us. We don't access it, but they're there. And I want to include, not only are all points of reference, time and space, locations, space, whatever it is, not only that, but every emotional and spiritual state is also right here. The highest spiritual state, you know, when we talk about our memories of bliss or heart opening or all oneness or any of that kind of stuff, that never leaves. You know, so this is it. It's the whole thing is like, we're not going anywhere. We're discovering what's already here. You know, it's not gonna be the 4th of July fireworks and oh wow and rain and bliss and I'm crying, ooh, it's so beautiful. That's already there, you know.
Right.
So one of the things that the Sasquatch is going to show us is that this is it. You can find it inside you. The energy's there, the connection is there, and this is it. You know what I mean? Why do they live in the woods? because that's it. They don't have to go. They don't have to get a car or a airplane or this is it. You know what I mean? They're really good at this is it. So that's what I feel like. And this is it is without the boxes. You see, when we put a box in, and Brian talks about the box. When you put a box in, that's our limit. That's our condition. That's our belief. That's our resistance. That's our separation from this is it.
Right.
And also wanting. I want a better this, and I want a more spiritual that, and I want a more healthy this. And this wanting is reaching away from this is it.
Yep.
Reach away from this is it. And you're never going to get healthy. You're never going to get rich. You're never going. You see, because this is it. It's not there. It's here. Yeah. I'm the richest man in the world. I'm the most handsome man in the world. I'm the, most realized man in the world. There's nothing out there that I need to reach.
Which one of those statements was true?
All
one
of
those
them.
3 statements was true. Hey, okay. I wanted to ask you guys. So this is getting good. I'm coming up with some actually thinking of some, well, hopefully good questions. I don't want to, but they're entertaining me anyway. So, they say that the Sasquatch, I mean, we know the Sasquatch people have all these supernatural gifts, telepathy, connecting within, all these different abilities that we had at one time too. And I think they're also teaching us and reintroducing us to a lot of them. So why don't we speak of what is one thing that you have particularly noticed that they have enhanced in you or that you have noticed? And there may be a number of things, but speak on maybe one thing that sticks out that they have maybe been reintroducing you to, or you know my drift. Go ahead, Leanne. I like that. You're a teacher, but you had your hand up.
Yeah.
That was cool, man. I never made a teacher put her hand up before.
So I would say that I feel like I've always been intuitive, even as a little girl. They've helped me trust my intuition so much. Walking out in the forest, I'm sure we all have had many of these moments where you're going one way and all of a sudden you just have, it's like, I physically feel the idea put in my brain, go over there, go this way instead of that way. And I go that way, and boom, you find something just so beautiful that was out of sight. And there it is. So for me, it has been a trusting and a honing of my intuition, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, that's great.
I was going to say the exact same thing. So I'm totally on board with that. Yeah. That's the first word that came to my head was intuition. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll actually third that one. That's exactly where it took me. My background is in engineering, which is totally all about analytical, logical, rational thinking. And that's what I was tuned into. And when this began 3 years ago, they reintroduced me to my intuitive side, and that I actually have one, and that it's actually even more powerful than the rational, logical, linear thinking side. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey my last 3 or 4 years.
You do realize that
you guys have been going for a lot longer.
By agreeing with everybody, Kevin.
You what?
You do realize you're ruining this.
That's my job.
By agreeing with everybody.
I know it's my job.
Come up with something original. No, but no, I mean, well, that's obvious, but I think with me, it's like just energy, understanding the language of energy and being able to read it, the thought placement aspect of energy, everything about energy and the communication of energy, like, mind speak, thought placement, confirmation with yes, this is right, all this kind of stuff, and reading people and feeling the connection of everybody through energy. I think energy is the big, huge thing for me because it's everything. It encompasses everything, really. Like the spider's web, it goes out in all the different directions, connects everything together. So that's my big thing. Did you talk, Beans, or?
Yep.
Me, it's the greatest gift I think that they've given me in terms of is just what I just said, is to be comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
I used to really, really want to go see the Sasquatch, or I want to, I want to experience that, and and then I'd feel jealous when other people had seen Sasquatch, or they say they got close to it, or something wonderful happened with Sasquatch. I go, oh, I want that, I want that.
Right.
And like I said, it took a couple of years for me to just accept that, uh, accept that again, this is it. I'm enough. I'm sufficient. I'm not that desiring for what you don't have is proof that you don't have it, but that's not the truth.
Right.
There's not that we don't. There's nothing that we don't have. We have it all, and then that forced me to find the Sasquatch connection inside of me, find me to just feel that the okayness of however they do it. The other thing is the first few years, I was getting rushes and downloads and inspirations and connections all the time, and then that dropped down, right? And I was like, oh, I want, where's my excitement? Where's my inspiration? It's like, no.
Yep.
I just let that go, and it's like, if it's once a month or once a year or whatever, I'll give an example. This is a good example. I used to watch the Sasquatch shows, right? Oh, it's Finding Sasquatch, the Sasquatch Researchers, Sasquatch this, and Monster Mash, and all this kind of stuff, right? Every kind of thing, right? And I go, I wish that there was some more woo, because I knew they were about to woo. I want to hear more about the invisible stuff, and and I was thinking the other day, well, guess what? That's what Pork and Beans is all about.
Right.
Not only did I go looking, I'd listened to our Christmas show yesterday, and I compared the Christmas show that we did, or any of our shows, to the other researchers, and it's like my jaw dropped. All the stuff that's happening now is exactly what I wanted, exactly what I needed, and it sort of manifested for me.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because I don't want to hear about people being scared and pissing their pants, or hiding in their closet, and well, that after 300 times it gets old.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, and it's not accurate, right? That's all
It's
about
not
their
accurate.
perception.
It's temporary. It's an evolution that they have to go through, a fear that they have to drop.
Right.
Yep. Exactly. And one of the things that, going back to you, when we focus our attention so much on them, on the Sasquatch, and we start bypassing, we use it as a bypass to ignore ourselves. So we put so much focus on trying to figure them out and learn about them and their ways, and that's when they'll pull back, because they don't want that. They want us to work on ourselves. And so, yeah, I totally understand that.
Yeah, I think initially, and there was a good example of that when I had my camp out here a couple of years ago. Like a guy first time up here, RE walked right out in camp, right in front of him, because he had to get his attention right away. Otherwise, he would have been gone. That would have been the end of it. But I think initially they want to get your attention. They do the whoops and the yells and the screams and all the in-your-face stuff. And then once you start getting the downloads and the information and the knowing or whatever, it's not really. It's like they're not here to entertain you. It's just like they'll still give you some stuff like that. But it's all about lessons and just a deep knowing, And I feel myself growing in that knowing or whatever. But maybe some of the thrills and the chills to get me to that knowing aren't there, but as much. But and sometimes they are. Sometimes amazing stuff happens too. But it isn't it's like they want to get your attention, and then they can, if they get your attention and you pay attention, then they can lead you on a path. Then they don't have to be as party time with you, whatever. They can just be like, it's more of just a knowing connection kind of thing.
Yeah, because when people talk about gurus, when people meet a guru, the guru doesn't sit around and talk about themselves. They don't sit there and tell their story. The guru is there to get you to learn about yourself and see yourself through them. So they don't want us to focus all our attention on them. Well, because that's
great parallel with the Sasquatch. Go ahead, Sam. But great parallel with the Sasquatch. They're doing that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because I honestly look at them as gurus like that, you know, because that's how they kind of operate as highly enlightened, very conscious beings that we are, you know, like we're meant to progress to that point that they're already at, but they don't want us to focus on them. They want us to focus on us. And so, you know, we can work with them and then learn a little bit about them as we go, but it's not just about them. And that's how I've learned this through the years, is when I start bypassing myself to focus on them and trying to connect with them. And I just want to get out there and just like, you know, I go out every day and just trying to connect with them. That's when I lose the connection, because they don't want that. You know, they pull back, and then you're like, crap, what did I do? What did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong? And you start like, you know, what did I do? And then when you stop doing that, then they come back. And it took a long time for me to realize that, you know, I kept thinking like I'd go in their area and be like, oh, they're back, you know, they're here. And I get so excited, and then they go away again. And it's just because of that, you know, they're just like, no, man, you're missing the point of all this. Stop. And then,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree with that 100%. And another point to that, another equally valid point, is sometimes in the lulls, there's a, what do you call it, acclimation, or I mean, you have to simulate the knowledge or whatever. Because I find that sometimes when I've come out of a lull and I get into another period of intense activity, my knowing is I've got more of an understanding. Something is evolved, you know, and then another lull, another level of knowing or whatever. So there's also a simulation thing there. There's also, yeah, like you said, like we're not here to entertain you, and like it's about you. It's not about us, and we're not here to, you know, play rock throwing contests with you and stuff. Although that is fun, but
they're not here to choose the relationship. That's the big one. Is like our lack of confidence in our own relationship. And for them, once they make a connection, that's it. That's it. That it's eternal, lifetime, this lifetime. That's it. And we're the ones who go, oh, but I want some attention, or oh, but I want to be notified. Oh, I want to be included. Oh, I want to, right? But no, they're rock solid. They are your friend for this lifetime and maybe the next ones. Who knows? And maybe they're gonna, well, you know, meet you in heaven and shake hands and say, "What a ride!" You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, you can. But
you're gonna tell that joke again. You're not gonna tell that joke again, are you?
I should.
Jeez, oh, you tell us.
You can meet them in heaven every day. You know, once you make that connection with them, you pull back. But like they give you like a lesson packet, like what Brian was talking about. You know, they'll give you like here, take this and study this for a while. You know, just keep you occupied. Like when I meet with Vabion, she really only comes to meet with me face to face like once a year so far. You know, 2 times. But there's always the connection. We're always in communication with each other. It's always there. She's always showing me what I need to see. But when we meet in person, she does that like rapid projection thing. And it's like a year's worth of information that has to slowly unpack itself.
Imaging learning. That's like the ETs do that. The ETs do that. That's how people can go up and visit the ETs, and they sit in front of a computer screen and it's just be rapid imaging for an hour, and then they can send them back.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes a year to unwrap all of it. It's like an ever expanding. It's like a zip file, you know, that's just kind of put in, and then it takes forever for it to keep unwrapping, and it's like
it's the opposite of the way we teach our kids. We teach our kids the slowest way that's possible, which just blows their whole vibe.
So Leanne, I saw you shaking your head during the conversation. So did you agree? Is that your experience too, simulation periods and stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, your experience from it, or how that works with you?
I think, as we talked about earlier, it's like they know what I've learned. They know and remember everything that I've learned and seen or found and thought. And only when that has become comfortable part of my everyday thinking and understanding and vision and feeling, will the next lesson come, and somehow it dovetails into something I've already learned. But if I'd been given that lesson too soon, I wouldn't have had the foundation of these other experiences to really understand.
Right.
But that resting time has been so essential, and I can see it clearly now when you're in it, or certainly years ago when I was just really starting to, when I was losing my mind, when I was like overwhelmed with it all. I couldn't quite understand what was happening, but I see it so clearly now that it's that resting time that needs everything to acclimatize with itself in order to move forward with that broader.
You know what's so interesting? People mention that kind of stuff. Like when I think about it, I'm thinking, you know, like sometimes I question myself, like, am I just making this up? Although I know I'm not, you know, because I'm not. But then, you know, you start talking about it with other people like you, and like you just with your answer with my question there, and it's the identical kind of experience and whatever. So, you know, it just really makes it real. It's, yeah, that is simulation time. I mean, you know, you think it, it's just me, but then when somebody else confirms the exact same experience, it really makes it amazing. It's just unbelievable. So Kevin,
So yes.
are you going to do your job for the show today? Are you going to ask the question? You can pick any person or any group, or ask us all to answer individually.
Actually,
ask us a question.
I actually want to ask Leanne, because I think I've heard Sam's story on this one, but I've never heard Leanne's story. And I'm going to say what happened to me without any further explanation than what happened. And I'm going to ask, what has been your experience around this? So probably a year and a half into my relationship with my clan, where I was consciously aware and they were really working with me. One of my clan members, okay, let me just put it this way. I learned through a variety of instances that they can appear to you as whatever they want to appear to you as. Have you ever had an experience where you know that what you're seeing, be it an animal, be it, you know, something else, is not really what you're seeing. You're seeing actually them, or you're interacting with them, as opposed to truly one of the forest creatures, you know, one of the little forest critters. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, I kind of was all over the place.
And Kevin, that could be seeing through their shape shifting or seeing through their eyes. Either way, right? Right.
Well, that would be a follow-up question, Brian. Don't be
okay.
raining on my parade. Let Leanne finish.
So visually, I've had just a bit more about myself. Nature photography is a big passion of mine and a hobby of mine. And I've had a couple really incredible close encounters with wild animals. One in particular was a fox up at our cottage in a gravel pit, where I last summer found a bunch of prints. I didn't cast them, they were too thin. And I found prints 2 summers ago. And 3 winters ago, in fact, I think I have a screenshot. I was in the gravel pit, and it was in the fall. It was Thanksgiving, and I'd never photographed a fox. I've always wanted to, and I've had a few close chances and missed them. I've got a lot of fox on audio, and coyotes and canines on audio, which have been amazing. And I do think that canines and Sasquatch are, you know, they run together, whether they are very bonded in lots of different ways. So I was in the gravel pit collecting rocks, because that's what I like to do also. I rock collect. And this fox came out of the tree line at the top of this big pit. And I saw it, and it saw me, and I had my big camera in the car, and it literally beelined it right to me. And it wasn't sick. It was beautiful. It was healthy. In fact, I think I've got it as one of my virtual backgrounds. Can you see that background?
I think the fox is directly behind you. Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
So that's one, but I got so many other ones. Like it came right up to me, and I got photos of it, like looking right at me, and at such a close distance. In fact, my lens, I had to like pull it right in because it was so close. My lens almost didn't get it properly because like I had to back kind of thing. And it walked around me. It had the most beautiful demeanor. It was so gorgeous and healthy. And then it went away. It just came to say hello. And it, it was incredible. It was like, wow, thank you. Thank you. So I would say
Right.
from your question, that's the closest, like that's the one thing that comes to mind quickly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I'd like to hear.
Sam. Oh, you want to hear mine?
Yeah, or
Yes.
yeah, yes.
Okay. Well, I have had a couple, and I'm going to tell you the one that's definitely a wow experience. And I'm going to tell you one that'll really bend the laws of credulity. I mean, really, for me, it did anyway. The first time it happened, I was walking down a trail, and all of a sudden, a thought placement was in my head that was, "Prepare to have your world changed forever." I mean, literally, that was the verbiage. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm not thinking these lines, and I'm thinking I'm out in nature having a good time. And so I'm thinking, okay, that's odd. So I come literally right after that thought, I come around this corner, and the largest doe I mean, we're talking not a doe, but she was a doe. I mean, it was the biggest deer I have ever seen in my entire life. I startled her, or I don't think I actually startled her. And all of a sudden she started running away. And I couldn't tell which direction she was coming at first. And I was afraid she was coming at me, and she was so big, there was no way I was going to be able to get out of the trail before she knocked me over. That's how visceral this was. And then I heard the hoof beats on the ground, but then all of a sudden my brain started to say, hold it. That's not, the visual is not matching what you're hearing, the auditory. And what I got was a large, basically, I think that was my first real Sasquatch visual, right? And right next to the trail was a baby, not a baby Sasquatch, a baby deer. But this was not, there's no way that what I saw was the mom deer, because we have lots of deer. I have them come up my driveway all the time. They're not that big. They're, well, they're the size of a small deer, right? And this was like the size of an elk or bigger. And it was so enormous. And okay, I had to process that for a couple of months, actually. That happened in the spring, like May. And then in August, I was back down in the exact same area. And between that first sighting and what happened in August, they started to interact with, the female started to interact with me. And one particular female started to interact with me with a floral perfume type aroma, which was really, and there was an energy that went along with it that I can't actually describe it. It was like that loving energy that Brian keeps talking about. And I know you have too, Sam. It was overpowering almost, but it was intoxicating. It was amazing. But so she worked with me from May to August. And then in August, what happened was I was on this, I use this trail for staying in shape. So I run the trail. No, I don't actually run it. I walk the trail with a loaded pack 2 or 3 times every other day. So I had done the trail. I'd reached the lake, and I was turning around to come back out, and I'd come to the stream that exits the lake, and I've got to cross the stream. Well, out of the woods starts coming this family. First comes a little kid, literally 3-4 years old. Not something, and there's no adult in sight. Not something that you would normally see in the woods. And that caught my attention right off the bat. I'm a dad, right? I'm thinking, oh, what kind of parent's going to let their kid wander? So I'm looking for the parent, and I don't see one initially. Then a dog walks out of the woods, and they're spaced fairly evenly, actually. The dog walks out. And again, there's just something not right. Most dogs absolutely love me. I mean, where I got this connection with dogs where it will walk by, it will at least acknowledge my existence in a very positive way. It doesn't matter what dog. This dog gave me no time. It's like, no, I don't even want to look at you. And it trotted on by. As the kid walked by, he's looking at me with almost terror in his eyes. I'm going, this is just not right. Right. And then the mom comes walking out. And the energy was so insane. My wife is looking at me like, you are insane, Kevin. I'm almost done. Anyhow, because I've never told her this story.
You're in good company.
Right. So out comes the mom, and the energy was, I knew that what I was seeing with my eyes was not what was present. It was, but I couldn't see anything beyond what I was actually visually seeing. Right. Well, she walks by, and then comes her mate, or her boyfriend, husband, dad, father of the child. I don't know who, right? So I don't know the relationship between this family group, but he's a big man, right? And he's blonde, and he's built like a linebacker. He's about 6'2", 6'3", and he actually, the mom looked me directly in the eye and seemed to want to interact, like as in like just a quick little conversation. Hi, how you doing? Great, whatever. He wanted nothing to do with me. He wouldn't look at me, and he just continued on by like I didn't exist. Okay. So this was my first time down the trail. So I get back up to the top, and I turn around, and I'm going to come back in through, thinking that I was going to meet them. And I did. I met them again. I crossed the stream, and I was heading down into the lake area, and they're coming up the hill towards me along an abandoned road. And first comes a kid again. I mean, it's almost the same exact situation where the kid comes, the dog comes, and then the mom, and then the husband, or whatever. Well, all of a sudden, well, actually, I need to go back. Keep that picture in mind. The first time I saw them, the aroma, that floral aroma, there was a hint of it when she passed me, just a hint. And I thought, well, that's odd, right? And it confused me. It threw, and I have to tell you that my senses were just all over the place. So when we went back down, when I met them coming up the road, I passed a little boy who seemed a little bit more comfortable this time, not quite so freaked out. The dog still gave me no attention whatsoever. And I love dogs. They're great. And then she comes up, and she actually reads my shirt. It's the only words I heard her say were, "Oh, I have this Dr. Pepper shirt that I wear hiking because it's thin enough, and for a variety of reasons." Anyway, and I said, "Yeah, I like it. Do you?" And then she didn't really say anything. He kept walking by, and as she passed, that's when there was not even any question of the floral aroma. It was so strong that it overwhelmed me. Actually, almost beyond anything I've ever had, energetically and with the aroma. And so I'm completely confused because my visual is not matching what is happening. And then the husband, or the male the man comes walking up, and again, they're keeping maybe 6 to 8 feet between themselves, and it's consistent between both of them. He walks by, and I'm looking at him through the corner of my eye as I pass. And I swear to you, he growled at me. Right? There was a growl. And I know my eyes got huge. It's like, oh my gosh, right?
That's incredible.
So, Brian can attest to this. I came home, and as soon as he got online, I shared this with him, and I said, I can't figure this out. I don't understand what just happened. And so Brian and I walked through it very carefully, and I'm giving him all the salient details. And he goes, the aroma, that's where it's at. That's your clue. That's your confirmation. Right. And I said, so what you're telling me is my clan can appear as humans in front of me. And I'm not going to know, really. I mean, they're going to, if they want me to know, I'll know, but otherwise I'm not. They can fool my perceptions. That was a pretty insane realization. But that's where I come to when I ask you guys those kind of questions. It's like, I've had this weird experience that really is beyond anything I could ever possibly have imagined. Have you had anything like that kind of? That's where the question comes from. So Sam?
Yeah, I've got one that came to me while you were talking about that. It's at the place in Georgia where I call like the school or the learning area. I was there with my family once. We went on a hike and we were just walking through the woods. We weren't camping. We just went there for a day hike. And so we're walking down this, it's like a Forest Service road that parallels this hill that it looks like it used to be used for like maybe gardening or something, because it's an old Indian reservation. And so I'm walking with my family. I'm walking behind them, and I get this like sense of just slow down a little bit. So I start slowing down and I space myself from them. So my two sons and my wife are walking in front of me, and I slow down so that the gap between us increases, and I get a better perspective of everything with them in it. And so they're probably about 20 yards in front of me. And I'm walking, and out of the corner of my eye on top of the hill, I see a Auburn SASQUATCH, and he's on top of the hill, and he runs behind this pine tree. He just like runs behind the pine tree and stops. And I'm not sure what kind of pines they are, but they're real big. They look kind of like ponderosa pines, but they're not. So he stops, and I look at my family, and they're walking, and they don't see him. And then he runs from one tree to the next down the hill, and he hides behind that tree for a second, and my family doesn't see him. Then he runs to this last tree, and this tree is right next to the forest road that we're on. And I'm like, holy shit, they're gonna see him. I'm like, he's gonna run out in front of them, and they're gonna see him. And I was like, this is gonna be so great. And I'm walking, and I'm just like, I'm so excited. And a deer ran out from the tree and ran into the road and turned around and looked at them, and they saw him, and they stopped, and they're like, hey, and then he ran up another hill and out of sight. And they're like, did you see the deer? And I was like, yeah, I saw him,
Wow. That's a great story.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Next time I share a little short audio story. This happened 4 winters ago. I'm just talking about our lessons that we are given and take some time to kind of settle in. I left audio out at a location. I'd been leaving audio out consistently there ever since finding 2 structures pop up there. Beautiful structures. They've been in a bunch of my videos. And so I went there at night, and it had snowed that day, and there were no other animal prints, no canines, no nothing, just my snowy boot footprints into the forest, put it next to the same tree that I put it next to every time I left it there, and came back the next morning and got it. And I was disappointed as I was walking towards the recorder, because there was no other footprints in there. There was no canines. There was nothing, not even squirrels. I thought, oh, what a waste of a night, right? Oh, it happens, right? So I started listening to it, and within the first hour, I had all of this. So I'd set the date, set the time, set the weather conditions. It's all on the audio, right? Provable. I had tons of activity around the recorder that night. Footsteps, like canine footsteps. I could hear what sounded like a deer walk by. And the most incredible thing was the footsteps were on like dry leaves. It was leafy, like there was no snow. There was leafy ground noises, but the ground was covered with snow. So it was like there was an overlay or a recording of like an alternate reality existence happening. I got it all in audio, but there was not one mark left in the deep snow.
That is amazing.
It sounded like the fall, like this kind of crispy leafy ground forest. Yeah, but it was in the middle of winter. So like just one of those things that people wouldn't believe if like, I hope that they do one day, but this taught me like maybe even these structures, we never see them being built. Is there an overlay of universes, of dimensions going on where they can be being built, not seeing them? And it's like a Harry Potter cloak, right? they open up and boom, there it is. Like, what's going on interdimensionally all the time,
Yeah.
right?
There's different time frames at play too, where they can, you know, like where they can, you know,
Yeah, it was just the
I
most.
guess that's the advantage.
Like wow,
Hey, you guys, I hate to have to run, but my family, just my son and his girlfriend who don't live with us anymore, just showed up. So I am going to have to take off. But thank you guys. This has been amazing. I have loved both of your short stories.
Thanks, Deb.
Anyway, have a good one, you guys.
Or Mr. B.
Have fun, man.
Oh, Kevin, look up in the Bible the story of doubting Thomas.
I already know that story inside and out, my friend.
Yeah, well, that's what you were telling, the story of doubting Thomas.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, have a good one, you guys.
All right. See you, man.
So I was going to say that, you know, I probably suspect that I've had about 3 experiences where the Sasquatch have been people, humans, like just no other explanation for it. But I love Kevin's story because it added that extra element of the floral perfume. I mean, I've smelled that, but that was like perfect confirmation. Like in that, I mean, there's no brainer in that situation. I mean, it's, you know, a situation like that'll come up when you get suspicious, but they always seem to, when it's important, to give you that no doubt thing. And that perfume for him was like, okay, wow,
Right.
there's no question about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had so many experiences with them shape shifting or seeing through the eyes of animals. Can I tell you one quick one?
Yep.
So Sue and I were camping about 5 or 6 kilometers back in the woods by a little river there in one of our places. We've had so many great experiences. And we were having Sasquatch interaction the whole 2 or 3 days, you know, including them walking around in the bushes or whatever, and just energy and just magical kinds of things. So these pair of ravens were hanging out with us the whole time, for the whole 3 days we were there, except for a time when these 2 girls came and camped with us not with us, but close by us for one night. The ravens weren't there at all when they were there. Every other time they were there. And I love ravens. There's a special connection between Sasquatch and ravens. I just adore them. I got some not pet, but I got some ones I feed at work and whatever, like city ravens, and they're kind of cool. Yeah. But anyway, so these ravens are observing us the whole time. And so we're sitting there on the shore. There's a little bit of sand by this river, and we're sitting there, and we've got our beach blankets out right beside each other, and they're like 3 inches maybe apart. Sue and I are laying out, and we're just sitting there talking, and we had just laid them down, right? Just laid them down. And we're looking over across the water, and we see the raven watching us from the other side. And then, just as we saw it watching us, we looked down on the blanket, and there was a nex laying partially on my blanket, a friendship welcome nex. It was partially laying on my blanket. And absolutely impossible. It had to have been placed there. There's no other explanation. So the friendship welcome X was placed there by the Sasquatch. Just as we were looking down and we're seeing this raven. Just after that, the raven flew directly over our heads, like right over our heads. And then I got the idea. I got this thought placement thing. I got to go back to get something or check something, right? So I went back to the camp, which was just like 20 feet away. We were just like sitting on blankets. We had a little fire going. And as I went back there, right by where our firewood was all stacked up because we stacked up the firewood for the night, was a single raven feather, which was right there. And 100% it was not there. Right after that raven flew over, the raven feather was there. Okay. And here's the real cool part of it. Another cool part of it. Sue's laughing about my city ravens joke. Yeah, those city ravens are low down and dirty. Those guys mean to. Anyway, so shoot, now I got off my track myself. Okay, so it flew overhead, and the feather was right there, right? Okay, absolutely no brainer that when that bird flew over, that's when the feather was left. The X was there. It was all supernatural kind of stuff. So Sue took about 2 or 3 pictures of the feather by the wood stack, and I took a couple pictures. And later on that night, Sue says, "Oh, let's look at that picture again." So I pulled up my camera and I'm going through the pictures, and the pictures of the feather by the wood stack were gone. They were removed from my camera, and that's happened many a time. And then I said, well, let's see what's going on with Sue's. And so she looked at hers, and the pictures were gone from her camera too. And there was like 3 or 4 of them. So the pictures of the raven feather by the wood stack, they removed. And I don't think it's because they didn't want them seen. It's just, or there could have been something sensitive in the picture. I don't know, but, or just to show us what they could do. But that's what I'm talking about by a connection between them and ravens and owls and people. I mean, they can shapeshift into anything virtually.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's a beautiful story. That's great. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to leave in a bit.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Leanne, you pretty well stuck in for the whole time. Unless Sam wants to hang around, we could actually wrap it up because it is about over 3 hours now.
Yeah, it's good. My bladder's right about the 4 meters.
Okay. Well, then you know what, Leanne, you were a trooper because you hung in for the whole show. So I'll tell you what. Anybody want to say anything in closing? Anything, or just leave it as is?
Thank you for having me here today, Brian and Michael and Sam. It's really great to meet you and chat with you and hear more stories. And I want to keep this conversation going.
Yeah.
So, channel, do you?
I don't. I'm in the process of possibly starting something. But I'm on Facebook. I think we're friends on Facebook. I can't remember, but
Your name.
Yeah. But we should definitely chat because I have a lot of stuff I'd like to ask you because I feel like we have a lot of stuff that overlaps.
I feel that too, and I would love that, especially in the realm of audio. There's, like we've barely even scratched the surface. I have a feeling so much that we can cover.
This is the best part of the show, and this is the best part of what they do is that they connect people. You know, like-minded people, and we exchange information, and our knowledge grows, and our heart grows, and connection grows, and all that, and quite a blessing. So, yeah, and I guess you can connect with those other people from the Christmas show too, hopefully, and do all that. So anyway, guys, I really appreciate you stopping in, Sam. Appreciate you stopping in, Leanne, and it was a lot of fun. The only thing that really wasn't perfect about it, I didn't realize my pictures were so delayed, but hopefully it was okay. But
well, they look pretty good.
Anyway, so from Fort Cunningham and Frank Oliver Baines, this is the Pork and Beans Show. God bless you all. Keep your energy high, and don't let the fear get you down, and rise above all the turmoil and
love more.
All those cliches. What a bunch of.
This is it.
This is it.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Who cares about the clouds if we're together?
Just sing a song and bring the sunny weather.